some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very presence
Putting
of
Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes, I mean,
Wait, oops. Oops, sorry about that. Pushed the wrong button. I was too busy getting completely confused by what a ridiculous fucking answer that was. Some people might say that you're doing the same thing to Republicans by litigating cases against them. In what way? I have no idea what you speak of. Why would they believe that? They might say because you brought all the cases against Donald Trump. Yeah, about that. But, you know, of course, I mean, he was brought before a completely impartial judge and jury. I mean, that's not like anything was orchestrated by the Department of Justice or anything to make sure that it was the most ridiculous case imaginable. No. And the sad thing is, none of them are actually going to have to fight anything because I don't understand how these people don't well, the whole show is about how these people don't really understand much, but today I'm going to be asking that a lot because in this case, it's like, how do you not remember the Hillary Clinton classified emails, lock her up, you'd be in jail, and then get in office and, no, I'm not going to do that. And he doesn't do that, and it doesn't happen, and nobody even suggests making it happen. At least nobody with any real authority or anybody within the cabinet or anybody in Trump's circle or Trump himself. So, I mean, it's like there's rhetoric, especially a campaign rhetoric. There's excitement over a campaign and maybe some overexcitement over a campaign. And then there's actually going and doing it. And there's only one party that has actually been guilty of that. And I played this clip a long time ago. I'm not going to play it again. I'm just bringing it up because I'm sure a lot of you probably weren't here for that. But I played it a long time ago where Tom Cotton is trying to advise Dick Durbin, who was chairman at the time of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, that as they were taking a vote, there was a nominee who hadn't been able to be questioned yet by several members of the Republicans because it was scheduled during several other hearings, and it was scheduled during, I think, a vote of some kind. And it's like, you know, the Senate has a bunch of things going on all at once, and they can't always make it to all the meetings or all the hearings that they would like to go to. But they try to make sure they accommodate every senator, so at least they have one sitting where they can ask some questions, especially if it's a really important nominee for something. Now, a bunch of people didn't have a chance to ask questions for that day's nominees, and Dick Durbin decided he didn't care because something that happened a long time ago basically made it hard for them to get to a meeting or something. I don't remember his reasoning. It was just basically like, well, you guys did something similar, so we're just going to do this. And it was essentially like a situation where there were clear differences already, number one. And number two, they were all essentially like none of the Republicans really even voted yes or no. They just said nothing because they weren't able to question the nominee. And the weirdest part is that as they're trying to get the vote counted, Tom Cotton is saying, you guys, you don't cross this road. I'm telling you, there's going to be serious consequences if you do. There's going to be serious consequences. You're going to have them coming. I want you guys to remember this moment. And here we are with a Republican-controlled Senate, Republican-controlled House, Republican president, and they are totally, completely unhinged, losing their minds over everything. They sound like complete morons and fools. They are standing up for things that make them sound so absolutely hypocritical, number one. And number two, like, are not in any way in conjunction with not only just the American people in general, but even Democrat voters. And you're starting to see more and more people that have a high profile that are known Democrats start to distance themselves from the party. It is kind of incredible to see, because even people that are from Hollywood, where you are basically kicked out if you're somebody who is a Trump voter or supports the Republican Party in any way, a lot of people are preemptively leaving and saying, fuck this, I'm out of here, and I'm going to just tell everybody how I think, because I'm tired of having to censor myself. It's wild, but it's culminated really a lot in the last few days, and damn, sorry. As I put in the description, I was out, sorry for, just wasn't feeling good the last couple of days, and I still have a bit of a sore throat, but geez. And it's actually got that sort of tickly feeling, when you have, it's not really like nasal congestion, but there's that feeling like when you feel like you're going to cough, but you don't always cough, because it's this weird, like literally somebody tickling the back of your throat. It's really weird, but anyway, I had that. It was really bad the last couple of days, and I'm feeling much better today, but I still have a little bit of a weird feeling in my throat. So, but it's not a problem. Anyway, last few days, though, were honestly, I'm kind of glad. I was trying to go on late last night, but I started watching a little bit of things pouring in from after the president's speech in joint session of Congress, and as I was watching more and more stuff, I was like, nah, you know what? I need to give it one more day and compile it and put it together, because if I just put out an episode now, first of all, people are going to be focused on this tonight. And if I give it a day, I'll have my thoughts together by tomorrow, and I'll be able to include that in the show. So I'm going to get to that. There's one thing I'm going to get to first, though. I'll get to that in just a second. But I just going to let you guys know that was what was happening the last couple of days. And sorry about that. It was just unfortunate couple of, unfortunate, finally, just a normal excuse of just illness this time, not some weird set of things that just went terribly wrong at the last minute. As far though as what happened? Well, Saturday. What happened Saturday? Oh, that's right. That's right. I fell asleep. I was not. I needed sleep so bad, and I was gonna try to get to the show, but I passed out early in the morning because I was pushing it way too hard. And what happened? I remember I woke up really late in the afternoon, and very discombobulated. I didn't really know what was going on, and I thought, oh shit, the stream. That's right. I think I tried to start one, but it just was not gonna work out. So then Sunday I tried to do one, but I was prevented from it because of a bunch of other stuff that came up. So I didn't get to do my makeup stream. I didn't get to do my Saturday stream, and I think it was a culmination of exhaustion, frustration, and a low immune system that ended up with me getting sick by Monday morning. But anyway, I'm here now, so that's the situation, and it sucks, but we deal with it. And I'm really seriously trying. As I've said before, I'm just gonna, at this point, I'm not even gonna try to really. I was just explaining this time because, like I said, it was something pretty normal. But I'm just going to, from here on, just try not to address it too much, because I'm really seriously trying the best I can to do the daily show. But and I've tried to stick to that schedule, man. I'm telling you, I don't know why. Well, I do know, I guess, that the best guess I can give is that I haven't really had a seriously long working schedule. What's up, Eddie Madison? How you doing? I'm doing good myself. Had a lot of laughs this morning. I got some laughs for the show today too, because man, I got a little bit of. I will admit, I've got some anger to take out on one particular son of a bitch I can't stand, but that's coming. That's coming. But anyway, yeah, man, I have to say I've been completely dumbfounded. My jaw hitting the floor lately, like at what's been going on. The intro clip was actually pretty good evidence of that to suggest that the Democrats need to prepare for litigation coming their way. Yeah, man, the Democrats do. You know, as I was saying before, there was all the rhetoric around lock her up and all this other stuff. Donald Trump never put anybody in prison. Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, they actually did end up serving jail time. Somebody, who else was it? There was one other guy whose name eludes me now, I think, that was in prison. And his crime was basically association with Trump's campaign, and that's it. And that's why I said on the last episode I was on, Southern California, to shame with you people. I mean, you take the guy that was responsible for freaking the entire country out of this Russia bullshit, and you give him a promotion to Senate. Great idea. He spent his time very wisely, as a matter of fact, too. He's done nothing but lose his mind and freak out at every appointee that has come up before the Senate for confirmation, and that's basically all he's contributed. It's nothing but Adam Schiff's, run down the Trump administration's appointee time period, and that's all it is. It's just, oh man, nice. Oh man, I actually, I haven't seen any of the newer Daredevil stuff, although I do like the new design. I definitely like the new design a lot. I used to love Daredevil, though, back in the day, like before there was any movies, just the comics about Daredevil. I used to freaking... There's those comics where there was never any action figures. Like Captain America was a great example, and I remember when we finally found a Captain America action figure, and we actually got one for Christmas, but we both got one, so we ended up with 2 Captain America action figures, and it was crazy. But yeah, there was just those characters. Like, there wasn't a good figure of Deadpool for a long time. We eventually got one of those, but X-Men was always far more popular, so that made more sense. But any other Marvel character other than maybe like Spider-Man, I guess, would probably be the only other one. Not even Fantastic Four. In fact, I can't remember anyone except Doctor Doom that I ever remember seeing a figure for that was from the Fantastic Four. Not even Human Torch. So, yeah, not even Thing. There may have been a Thing action figure, but I definitely don't remember seeing one. But anyway, just a little stroll down memory lane. Besides, I was more of a Beast Wars kind of guy myself. Actually, because I was never huge on Reboot, although I did watch Reboot a lot. But Beast Wars, oh man, that was the shit, man. Everybody... Well, not even everybody. I don't even know how many people I knew watched Beast Wars, but every day I watched Beast Wars. That was freaking... And I also like the fact that... I'm sorry, I'm off on a tangent. I just have to complete this thought because it's important for no reason, but it is important. I did like how it was kind of ahead of its time by having a flowing structure that actually had an ending episode. It was a start to finish series, and it's rare, especially in American-made cartoons and American-made television in general, to have a start point and an end point to a narrative-driven storyline television show. But Beast Wars did that, and it was really awesome. So I'll never forget too, because the ending episode was maybe I shouldn't spoil it. I'm sure I'm going to be people accuse me of being a spoiler for Beast Wars. Well, either way, go look it up if you want to look it up. It's pretty good. But anyway, so let's get on with it. So first off, let's talk about something we haven't touched on it a lot. I've touched on it a little bit, but I've more touched on just Elon Musk in general, or just on USAID than the actual idea of Doge. And so let's dive into it. First off, the left has been going crazy about Doge, and I'm still kind of confused, but I'm not totally confused because I'm just waiting for them to hit the big one, like, and find something that is really damning, because there's only one reason they would be this defensive over the actual bureaucratic state and all of the freaking government agencies, which, USAID, I can say for a fact, in my case, I never even heard of USAID until this whole thing broke out. I'd never heard of the agency. I'd never heard of anything that it did. I didn't know. I had no idea of its existence until this information came out. I can tell you, though, that there are a ton of agencies like that me and probably you don't know about, unless you're unless you're really seriously into, like, all things politics, and you know every agency, and you probably don't even know them all, like, offhand. You'd have to probably look them up, but you're familiar at least with the agency and what they do. But most of the American people are not. And that's why, today one thing's going to be brought up by he who shall not be named until we get to that segment, and his absolutely disgusting arguments, is that the American people could have just looked up what USAID was being used for and spending money on. It's like, yeah, we could have if we knew about the agency in the first place, but most of us had never even fucking heard of the damn thing. So, and of course, it's like, it's that kind of thing. So he's saying that this information was already available to the public to find out that it was spending money on this sort of thing, but he doesn't want them to know it was spending it on these sorts of things. Like, it's a ridiculous argument that makes no sense on its face, and on top of it, it's made in complete bad faith because he knows that nobody would have been looking up, spending by every government agency on all their ridiculous stuff. Most of the stuff, I almost guarantee, was, this hidden agenda stuff, which, by the way, that's another problem, is that if you're going to prop up something good that they did, okay, that's nice they did a good thing every once in a while. What about these 20 or 30 other things they did that were wasting taxpayer money? How about that? How about we talk about that a little bit instead of, I don't know, flipping out like lunatics about how, no, you could have looked it up. You could have found information about it. You could have protested. Yeah, sure, okay. But there's going to be another clear notion that I'm going to bring up in due time. But first, I want to, I've got clips galore today, so let's get started with those. I'm going to start with our good friends at CNN because, what better than, some news to start the day off on the show? That's right, they are. And so anyway, this is a roundtable session on CNN, which is particularly irritating because none other than one of the hosts of that hit show The View happens to be on the panel today. Anna Navarro, the really high-pitched voice, fat-ass Mexican lady that has no freaking ability to comprehend much of anything, certainly knows nothing about the United States laws or its function of government or the way that anything is supposed to work in government. And yeah, that's about all I can say to describe her. But anyway, what they're discussing is I'm sure you guys have heard about this, but just to quickly go over it for anyone who might not have. Last week, Elon Musk sent out a message to every, I can't remember if it was, I can't remember how many government agencies, if it was just USAID or if it was, no, it was more than that. I don't know how many agencies, but he sent off a message to government employees stating, list 5 things that you did. I think I touched on it briefly last week. Anyway, it was list 5 things that you've done this month, I think, and the 5 accomplishments you've achieved this month, and it was basically meant to find out how many employees actually did anything and how many didn't, and it also implied that a non-response would be considered a response that you didn't accomplish anything this month. And the other reason was to find out, what would they say they're doing. And the main thing is that they've talked about this over and over again. I don't understand why this question gets brought up, but COVID brought in the policy of working from home. Trump talked about this on the campaign. Other Republicans talked about this on the campaign. RFK Jr. talked about this. A lot of people, Tulsi Gabbard, a lot of people talked about this. Ever since the pandemic, and as long as Joe Biden was in office, there were tons of agencies who did not ever implement a policy to make anyone return to work in the office. They kind of just allowed them to keep working from home for all that time. And when Elon was talking to Trump early on, before DOGE had been solidified, he talked about that being a major factor in why agencies were just not committing to working like they should have been, and why there's all these employees there, but there's not much being done. So another point of this message seemed to me like it was also meant to see, how many people are actually going to the office, because we knew that based on his projections and people he had seen, he was stating figures as low as a third of the workforce was actually showing up to the office, and the other 2/3 were not even coming into work at any point in time, and hadn't come into work since before the pandemic. This was not only ridiculous, but a complete slap in the face, to any person who actually works a normal 9 to 5 job, or any kind of, more than that. People have to work more than one job in a lot of cases to actually make enough money to survive even. And here's these government employees who no one's going to fire, and then you have Democrats coming in, and mind you, they probably wouldn't give a shit at all to even talk about this. They don't care if these people came to work or not. They don't care if they do anything or not. They don't care if they had to spend money on it or not. That's what's so strange about all of this. The only reason they care at all is because Donald Trump is doing it, and so they have to condemn him. They have to condemn Elon Musk because he bought Twitter, and because he's working with Trump now. And it's so transparently obvious that there's no real substance to what they're talking about. They just hate Trump, and this is one way they're trying to shame him by, once again, using the tried and true tactic of framing every single person at every single agency as some hardworking, blue-collar individual just trying to feed their families and trying to work hard. Yeah. Paint me that picture and show me how that is at all reflected in reality, because I guarantee you that this is nothing at all like it's being portrayed. So anyway, this is a bunch of clueless idiots, and Scott Jennings, the one person who actually uses his brain and actually uses logic and just laughs and runs circles around these morons while he's on the show, and him having to speak a little bit of truth in this session, otherwise there'd be none. So there is another guy there that seems to be pretty critical of the response by Democrats to DOGE, because this isn't just about this government employee sort of thing. This is about everything that DOGE is doing, which once again is just purely meant to fearmonger, because I guarantee one thing I'm going to address today in some detail is how much they're desperately trying to freak the American people out with threats of, you're going to lose your Social Security, you're going to lose your Medi-Cal, Medicaid, you're going to lose your this, that, blah, blah, blah. No, you're not. You're not going to lose any of that. And it's even crazy. In this segment, they even start downplaying the idea of well, it's just going to how much are they really going to cut? They're not going to cut that much anyway. Yeah, from one agency, First of all, no one was claiming that this one agency, nor even DOGE itself, was going to solve the debt problem. But at this point, when you're this far in the hole, $37 trillion, I don't know, you might want to start clawing back anything you possibly can to make up for that. And if it includes people who aren't doing shit and just mooching off the system, I think that's a pretty good thing to do. Regardless, it's the principle of the thing. Like that we're $37 trillion in debt, yet we got to pay some jackass who wants to just sit on his couch all day and collect a check from the government for doing nothing. Sounds like the illegal immigrants, but I digress. No, I'm sorry. The American people should not have to do that. No taxpayer should have to have their money going to some dickhead who is upset because he's losing his government paycheck because he refused to go into work. And yet CNN somehow, because it's Trump's perspective, wants to fight against that. So here we go. I'll bring this up now, and then we'll... I'm sure I'll be stopping and starting this over and over again. So I'm sure, like I said, I got a lot to say today, and I got several clips to bring up, but including a little bit about the whole address to Congress last night, which was very entertaining as well. But yeah, it's going to be kind of packed with a bunch of stuff. So as soon as I find the folder, where the hell am I? That's the problem. Nope. There we go. No, and by the way, there was just real quick, just because I was looking at the title, I might play this, I might not, but just so you know, there was a vote taken in the Senate, and the bill to ban men from participating in women's sports in schools and colleges, and I think it was mostly aimed at high school level sports, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyway, regardless of who it was aimed at, it didn't pass. And it didn't pass because literally every single Democrat voted against it. So there you go. There's more of their ingenious policies at work. But, imagine that. Imagine the idea that you have a bill before you that says you can't have men playing against women in sports or going into women's locker rooms for sporting events. Which, once again, one of the things Riley Gaines stressed when she was talking about this whole thing was how traumatizing it was to have a fully grown male stripping and changing in the girls' locker room, where they're all doing the same thing, and there were people in there who have had unfortunate experiences in the past that had real serious trauma because of being forced to undress around a male, and so it's sick. It's absolutely sick. But Dick Durbin came out and made sure to let everyone know how intolerant it was to not allow that kind of bullshit. So I like I said, I might get to that for sure, but there's so much to talk about. I don't know for sure, but yeah, we'll see if we can get to it. But the woke prophet Neil, ladies and gentlemen. I can't help but just laugh at the guy now. He used to be pretty entertaining. He used to kind of talk about, like what he's an expert in, astrophysics and quantum mechanics and things like that. Now he talks about, shit like that. Anyway, so here's the video. Let's, yep. Okay, there we go. All right. So here's Trump admin contradicts Trump. Here, I'll move myself around real quick just to keep because I think in this one it actually does pay to read the bar because yeah, it's pretty interesting the way that they word their quote unquote breaking news here. So oh, that's this side. Yeah. Oh wait, that's the microphone. That's right. I wondered what that was in the picture, and I was like, hold on. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. That kind of confused me. A little bit more. There we go. Okay. All right. Oh wait, no, it's still over. I'm sorry. I'm really anal about this kind of stuff, and it bugs me if I don't fix it. So there we go. Okay, now we're good. We'll get back to this. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and. Oh, we need volume though. Okay, now we're good. All right, let's go. Somewhere.
I want to dispel this myth that federal employees are some lazy, bureaucrats that don't show up for their work. Listen, 85% of federal workers work outside of Washington, D.C. Those are people who work at our national parks. Those are people who work on, the ag departments in farm bureau states. Those are people who are taking care of Medicaid and processing payments for people in red states like where Donald Trump lives. So we need to stop being so cavalier, Scott, about people and whether they're working or
where
not,
Donald
and
Trump
how come
lives.
they're so upset about getting an email. Because these are people's livelihoods.
Because some are
you
being
have the
cavaliers.
privilege of sitting here getting a six-figure paycheck from CNN.
and I
These
have to show
federal
up every
workers
You hear
have
you hear the
put their
contempt that already comes out right there. I mean, this is I know this is early, but listen to the absolute scorn that she has. You may feel comfortable here with your six-figure paycheck. I just remember. See, I had trouble with remembering what I wanted to name this episode. I went with a Jordan Peterson quote anyway because I was pretty sure that was what it was. And can the left go too far? Which is a good, important question that's been brought up, and obviously it can because you're seeing it now in real time. But there's another quote that came to mind first, and I forgot entirely what it was until this segment right here, which it reminded me of because this pretty much embodies. I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, actually. I don't know why I forgot. But anyway, Jordan Peterson has talked about this quote. It comes from, who is it? Is it Dostoevsky? Was that it? It may be. Anyway, it was a Russian writer who noticed among the communist Russian, USSR, or I'm sorry, Soviet Union, that as much as they tried to proclaim how important it was to protect the worker, and it was about workers' rights and the workers, the means of production, they should have, whatever it was that their values were decried to be based on, or excuse me, not decried, were reported to be based on, or supposedly based on in their own words. He noticed that when you watch their actions and you look at their own value, their own net worth, or their own riches, or their own wealth that they've built up, you notice first off that they have quite a bit of money. They have more money than your average citizen does, and they seem to be doing pretty well for themselves. But they still have this scorn against people, and it's usually people that are at the top percent and the highest level and making the most money. Why? Well, it's when you watch the way that they kind of incorporate their philosophy onto the population that you see that when they interact with the people who really are suffering, who really are on the lower levels of the socioeconomic ladder and really aren't in any way making enough money to, make a decent living. In fact, they're barely surviving. And the way that they actually interact with those people, you quickly find out that it's not really that they actually have this overwhelming urge and are inspired to help poor people or to protect the poor. They just despise and are so envious and bitter to the rich that they are seeking to harm them in any way that they can. Has nothing at all to being benevolent in the slightest or wanting to help the poor. It's about punishing the rich, and that's what you see from people like this. This lady, I guarantee, makes more money than about 90% of America. Yet she is going to, I guarantee, in any segment you bring up taxes, get pissed about Trump's policies that are going to, which, by the way, this is another bullshit narrative that I'll be going over several times today, but how he's going to pass tax cuts for billionaires. No, his tax cuts weren't for billionaires, and they're not going to continue to be for billionaires. They're for the entire population of the United States, and guess what? When he passed tax reform last time, the economy freaking exploded. It was going crazy until COVID hit, and the government was shut down, and it kept being shut down because Lord Fauci decried that I am the science, you will do as I say. But, unfortunately, to the Democrats out there, they're trying to explain it like this. You're just absolutely wrong. No, that's not true. And maybe, just maybe, just come out and admit the fact that you just hate rich people, that you don't like them and you don't respect the way they made their money. Fine. I don't think they're going to care. They're going to cry a river into their millions of dollars. But once again, and there's vestiges of this all over the place. Like, it's infamous at this point how Bernie Sanders used to decry the millionaires and billionaires, the millionaires and billionaires, millionaires, billionaires. And then as soon as he started earning money and he started making enough to say that he was a millionaire, suddenly the speech changed just a little bit. And it all became about the billionaires, the billionaires, the billionaires. It wasn't about the millionaires and billionaires anymore. It was just about the billionaires because now he was a millionaire and now he can't freaking, unfortunately, that he had to drop that one. But my point, once again, is that these are people that have no interest in anybody else. They're only concerned about their own socioeconomic standard, and making it known. It's almost like an inferiority complex where they feel like they have been overlooked so many times, despite their achievements, and they're going to force you to pay attention to them now. It's like, and everybody else is like, yeah, great, I got to get to work, get out of my way. And it's like, people have things to do. They're not too concerned about you and your successes. They're more interested in taking care of their own stuff. But once again, you can see it here, because what does Scott Jennings' payment from CNN, what does what he get paid have anything to do with what DOGE is doing for government employees? And how do you cast a wide net around every government employee and say with such reckless assurity that that these are the people that do this and that, they do so much, they do all the blah, 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 blah. How the hell do you know that? How the hell do you know what they do? Do you even know who they are? Do you know where they work? Do you know what they work for? Do you know how often they're in the office? Do you know how they're often on site? I mean, it's ridiculous. She knows none of this, and yet she's just pissed because why? Elon Musk is doing it, and Elon Musk is working for Trump. So anyway, I have to point that out because that's motivating so much of this. Just contempt for the rich. It has nothing to do with caring at all about the poor. Same reason they let in a bunch of illegals. We're letting in all these poor people that are going to need all this aid from the government, and they're going to give it to them. Population be damned. Who cares if the taxpayer has to suffer as long as we get more constituents? And once again, has nothing to do at all with helping poor people. Has to do with their own power and their own influence and making people pay attention to it. So back to this shit show.
I have to show up and earn it.
Public
And he reminds that he actually had to show up to the job and earn the payment.
They're not showing up and earning it. Hold on.
Why are you assuming that they are?
Hang on. Hold on, Joe. Let me play for you, just because apparently you think that it's only Anna and Tara who are concerned about this. Here's John Curtis.
He never
talking
said
about
that
this
either.
yesterday.
If I could say one thing to Elon Musk, it's like, please put a dose of compassion in this. These are real people. These are real lives. These are mortgages. It's a false narrative to say we have to cut and you have to be cruel to do it as well. We can do both.
There's nothing
Hold on.
There's nothing cruel about firing people not doing their job.
We all cannot speak
I've
at
been
the same
fired
time,
before.
But okay.
I
his
didn't like
point
it, but
is,
I left the
let's
job like
not
a-
be cruel. You can find out
with
how
respect.
people are performing on their job without sending a gimmicky email that is only going to get
Gimmicky
You're
email.
going to get false positives.
Once again, gimmicky email. What is gimmicky about an email from your employer stating, I would like you to list 5 things you did this month that were accomplishments? How's that gimmicky? Sounds like standard operating procedure to me. But it's the way they word this stuff. They show you exactly who they are and what they're thinking. They think that this was a terrible stunt used to demonize the benevolent workers. Actually, they probably don't think, I don't know, that's what they're trying to frame it as. I have no idea what they really think. They probably really don't give a shit. They just want to bash Musk. So, because once again, Elon Musk is a guy who's, number one, doing this job for free. So all the propaganda you hear out there about how he's making all this money, he's not getting paid to do this. That's point one. Neither is Trump. This is his second term where he's not making a paycheck. The last term, he donated all of his presidential income to different charities and organizations. And this time, I think he's doing the same thing, but I know he's not collecting his government payment. In fact, I already know where quite a bit of his presidential income is going. But yeah, it's just like there's just this underlying current of, if it's Donald Trump and Elon Musk, it must be bad. If it's anybody else that works for agencies that they're trying to cut a bunch of fraud and waste and people staying at home and not working from, it must be with evil intentions. That's what they're trying to sell, and it's not. It's bullshit.
You're going to get people who are bad performers responding to the email and good performers not responding to the email. And what does that tell you, Scott?
The premise of your question is that there are thousands of federal workers who are lazy and dishonest. You're saying that if people respond, then they're trying to game the system of a gimmicky email. That's number one. And I don't necessarily believe that.
On the planet.
Okay, there's nothing, but there's nothing.
That's not how you evaluate people, by asking them to send you a.
That's exactly how you evaluate people.
What 5 things did you do last week? It is a simple question. And the fact that no one seems to want to answer it tells me
No,
no.
can we put this in context, though? This is after, just in
Oh,
the
there
first few
she
days
is,
of the
the bitch
administration,
the
they
bitch
received
herself.
a buyout offer that then wasn't really a buyout offer. Then it was very confusing.
No,
Now-
No, it
They
wasn't.
got a buyout if they want.
They've got, there's
That's another thing too. They did offer them early on a severance package that gave them 6 months of pay to allow them to find another job, and it was a pretty generous offer. It was a good amount of money. It was a way to make sure that they and their families were taken care of for as long as it took to find them another job. It was something like, it was even, I think, even out to a year for a lot of them. And this is discussed either here or somewhere else in today's video clips, that, what the hell is going on out there? Huh. I don't know if that was just the wind or somebody knocking on my window. Whatever. Anyway, they can knock on my door. So it was a thing early on. Jeez, that made me completely lose my train of thought. What the hell was it? God damn it! I'm sorry. Well, I guess I'll keep going because I don't remember what the hell I was going to say now. But anyway. That better not have been somebody, or
all
I'll
over the
shoot him
country
out.
being fired in a haphazard way. There's probationary workers being fired.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
supposedly for
It was
performance.
it was a package to release. Look, maybe government work isn't for you. Maybe you have other aspirations. Maybe you want to do something else. If you aren't showing up to work, chances are you're not that passionate about that job. So, maybe you should jump at an opportunity someone's giving you to have you, quite frankly, get a pretty damn good chance at being able to find another job while staying stable enough to keep paying for the necessities that you need. That's more than I got from my job when I got fired. When I got fired, I was lucky as hell that I was tattooing. Also, at the time, I was an artist, and I'd just become an artist for about a month. I was hoping to build up a little bit bigger of a client base, but still, at least I had, something else to make money from while I had that happen. But if I hadn't, I would have been completely out of money. I wouldn't have been making any more income at all. I would have been just out of money until I found another job at that point. Like I say, luckily I was able to keep making money tattooing for, a long time after that, but at different shops. And the only reason that happened was because I had been in an area where the turnover rate was ridiculously high for artists, which is what I learned. But anyway, going back to the story here, you won't find a more generous way to offer people a way to voluntarily step away from their position that they aren't even showing up for, showing pretty much disdain and contempt for your employer, which in this case happens to be the American taxpayers, for fuck's sake. But yeah, there's not a nicer way you could do it. And she just says it was a sketchy bit thing. There was nothing sketchy about it. It was pretty well laid out. The reason most people didn't want to go for it is because the one thing about all these agencies is they're all headed by political Democrats that are partisan bureaucrats. They have responsibilities to all sorts of donors and all sorts of political party leaders and things like that. They are going to carry out an agenda. They have to carry out an agenda, and they are going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they don't lose any employees to Donald Trump's evil plans. So they were encouraging them not to take the deals. They're encouraging them, this is a ploy to get you to leave for no reason. It'd be nice if any of these absolute freaking manipulative pieces of crap in freaking Washington would actually, take it seriously that people are not stupid. They actually can make decisions for themselves, believe it or not. So maybe, just let them decide and don't throw your weight into it. Don't throw your stupid opinion into it. Nobody asked for it. And so anyway, she's completely misleading everybody on that statement, as just about everything this bitch says. But yeah, I'm sorry. She is so annoying. She speaks like she knows anything that she's talking about when she doesn't. And everybody on that stupid show, not this one's stupid too, but even worse, The View. No one on that set knows anything about what they're talking about. So anyway, here we go again.
Issues when nobody is actually evaluating their performance. Then this email goes out. Then the agency heads say, no, don't answer the email. Don't you find it don't you think it would be a little bit stressful right now to be a federal worker?
Oh God, not stressful.
Yes.
And there
be
are
a federal worker?
It's a hell of a lot more stressful than
Even if it was stressful.
Hold on a second.
Democrats dying.
Joe,
It's ridiculous.
Tara, and Scott, and Anna. Everybody, hold on 1 second.
The ways that they...
It is stressful to be working
air
at the
traffic controllers.
NIH.
I think it's more stressful to be an American taxpayer right now as to pay for this bullshit.
I read it in the Miami
Anna,
Herald this
hang on a
weekend.
second. Elon Musk tonight, just to add to the confusion about this, to be honest, he
There's
sent out another
confusion about this.
message on X saying the email requested was utterly trivial, as the standard for passing the test was to type some words and press send. Okay, yet so many failed even that inane test and urged on in some cases by their managers. Have you ever witnessed such incompetence and contempt for how your taxes are being spent? Makes old Twitter look good. Did not think that was possible. There was also some indication that maybe they might have have more time. So
Well, Elon
can they
also
get
put
their
out
story
but he also
straight?
put out a Twitter that said that, oh, Donald
put out
Trump
a
now
Twitter.
has given them a second chance for the people who didn't respond the first time, and that's the second chance. Like, first of all, let's get this straight. Elon Musk, no one elected him. DOGE is a fake illegal
And here we go.
operation that the courts will decide
No,
because
it's not.
in being litigated what they're doing. Also, people who are working at the federal government, the cruelty of this are people who have just graduated from college or just finished their master's.
Ah,
or came
yes,
from
the young
PhD programs,
scholars
and now they're being
argument.
told by
I
NASA
love
or
this
by
one.
HHS or by NIH after they move their lives.
Yeah, no,
to
they're not
wherever
lazy
to be
bums
public
that are
servants,
just, you know,
and they're
mooching
told
off
now,
taxpayers
well,
for as
no,
long
pack
as they
up, you
can.
gotta go. This is happening indiscriminately across our government. That is cruel.
I gotta
it's
say this because
unnecessary,
that
it's dangerous, and when our own agents.
you know what this bitch didn't do? She didn't step up when the FBI whistleblowers got the shaft for not going along with spying on parents at school board meetings and not infiltrating public mass or Latin mass at public churches. She didn't complain when they sacked a bunch of people from all these different agencies because they found out their political leanings were of, well, they are not supposed to be publicly leaning in any way, but they had no issue whatsoever until it became blatantly obvious that the entire country was outraged at a piece of garbage like Peter Strzok, the guy who, was sending text messages to his girlfriend Lisa Page, who he was cheating on his wife with. Just, an FBI lawyer who, FBI special agent, is banging on the side. And then while in their free time, they're discussing how terrible Trump is and how he's not going to ever become president. The FBI is going to stop it. He tried to say it was we, the American people, were going to stop it, but he's so full of shit. He is. You just take one look at him, and he just comes off as like arrogance incarnate. But didn't talk about that either. But it just blows my mind that I've talked about these guys before, but in particular, Steve Friend was one of the more unfortunate cases, but it was really Garrett O'Boyle, who was a longtime agent with FBI, ran counterterrorism operations, was a former member of the military, distinguished member of the military, had a great record, honorably discharged, went to work for the FBI, had a great track record. They tell him he's going to be part of this new special task force they're setting up in Quantico. He lives in Milwaukee and has to move down to FBI headquarters. And the day he gets there, gets off the plane, they don't even have their luggage yet because they're a special government interest. They're not just flying in any old plane. But especially their baggage that goes through FBI, I think, before it actually gets to them. So they were withholding their luggage until they got he goes into work and he finds out, no, actually, we're letting you go. So he moves his whole family, which, by the way, included a 2-week-old infant who now moved across the country, have nowhere to go, have no money, have no means of making money. And when you are working for the FBI and have a security clearance, and then you have that security clearance revoked, you're unemployable in any business in the United States, period. Like, you can't find work. So they not only brought him down there just to give him the shaft, but then basically ensured that he was going to be, he was tearing up in the congressional hearing because he, in his words, felt like a charity case. And he never wanted to be in that position or put his family through that. And it was incredible. This bitch is sitting here sticking up for a bunch of freeloaders who are mooching off the taxpayer in order to sit at home, not even bothering to read their goddamn emails. Because it came out, by the way, that a lot of these people didn't even get their emails because they don't bother to check their government emails. Oh, man, what hardworking individuals. Fuck you. Seriously? Go to hell. This is ridiculous. Your selective outrage is pathetic. Okay, back to the video. Sorry, got a little worked up there, but I mean, once again, the hypocrisy, the double standards, the absolute complete lack of any moral compass is just so disgusting, just absolutely ridiculous, and it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
Agencies are telling us that malign actors, are we just ignoring that
thinks
part?
it's cruel
Malign
to get an email
actors?
from your boss asking, "Hey, what did you accomplish?"
Elon Musk
Yeah,
is not
that's
their
it,
boss.
yeah.
Thinks that's
He
cruel.
works for the president.
No one thinks that's cruel. He is.
Does
If he's
he?
appointed
Or does
by
the
the
president work for him?
he is their
I
boss.
wonder who-
There's
who- wait,
$271 billion
Joe, you
of
said
federal spending.
no one, but that's not the case. Okay, here's Lisa Murkowski, also a Republican senator. She says,
Oh, yeah,
he
she's a
should get
good
to know
source.
each department and agency. She's talking about Elon and learn about the jobs he's trying to cut. Our public workforce deserves to be treated with dignity and respect for the unheralded jobs they perform. The absurd weekend email to justify their existence wasn't it.
We deserve
Well-
a better accounting of the $271
Here,
billion.
here we go.
spend in
Somebody else
federal
with some
government.
freaking
If
sanity
Someone
action.
cannot answer a simple
that's what
email.
Congress is
saying,
for.
"Hey,
Actually,
are you
Joe,
alive?"
That's
I'm here.
Congress's
Joe,
job.
I actually think you're 100% correct about that. There should be an accounting, but that's not this.
That's Congress's
Why?
job. That's
This
the
is not-
inspector
no, it's
general's
not.
job.
I
That's
don't
not.
need to hear this.
Elon Musk's
How does
job.
No,
this
it's
tell
not.
you
He doesn't-
anything about what's going on with the government?
Can I?
Again,
Elon Musk
this
knows
is-
nothing
this
about how
was-
government runs.
What is it telling you,
The
Joe?
argument
Oh, he
this
doesn't?
What is it telling you?
He
about
doesn't, because he's having to do most of the
was
government's
gimmicky.
work for
It's
them
saying
these days.
who is actually coming
Starlink,
in. Lee Zeldin just
SpaceX.
required his workforce to come in
Ring any
on
bells?
Fridays and Mondays.
That's not what
something
we're
that
talking about
hasn't.
here.
But my point is that's something that hasn't even been thought of in years. And
You
since-
just
since
acknowledged
COVID.
it was gimmicky by Elon Musk, like him going out on the CPAC stage with a
It's
chainsaw
gimmicky
jumping
in the
around
sense
like
that it's a
like
funny
a
way of
buffoon.
saying who's even
When people
reading.
Oh,
die,
because
they're
like he's having fun, because God
All
forbid
right,
that.
hold on,
I think
Scott.
I think one other point, and this is the push and pull of when a Republican is the president.
Oh, he's
an
absolutely
attempt
right about
when
that.
Republicans in the White House, Donald Trump or any other Republican, to argue that these federal agencies, federal workers, the bureaucracy, sort of can act independently or autonomously.
This is
from the
exactly what
political
I was
leadership
talking
of the
about.
country, and that's what's happening here. That's why everyone is melting down. That's why the lady came on CNN today.
Yep.
They don't want to answer the email because they don't want to answer to the president. And the
I'm not-
message
I'm
from
Yep,
Elon Musk
yep,
is we have
that's
political
it.
leaders in this country, and you got to answer to
I'm
it.
not following you. Are you saying?
Of course
are you
you're not following.
suggesting that it's only when Republicans
Yes.
are president that
100%.
agencies
Yes.
express independence?
Yes,
Well, you know that
correct.
that's not true.
No, I know it is 100% true that the
it's not.
bureaucracy
There
is
are-
not
there are
aligned with,
there are
mostly
career
not aligned
civil
with Republicans.
servants.
For a reason.
There are career
No, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right about that. Because you notice how, like I just said, like I was just talking about, the the FBI agents who were treated far worse, far worse than any of these fucking government employees at the agencies they're targeting right now. You know, the guys who have to catch the worst of the worst, who have to catch people who do incredibly unspeakable things to other human beings. Those people, when they get completely mistreated and thrown under the bus by an FBI that has been politicized beyond belief to make sure that they're going to, you know, defend and protect the Democrat agenda however they need to, and they, like, I don't care what all the suffering combined of these poor government agents that are being fired just because they wanted to stay home and do their work from home, but they weren't really working at home. But that's okay; they're still doing something. I don't know what, but it's about. Meanwhile, this guy, who happened to be refusing to do ridiculous nonsense like spy on parents at school board meetings and was raising awareness among people in his fellow his fellow employees that the bureau is asking them to do things that are unconstitutional and do not fly with the mission statement of the FBI. So be aware of that. He gets basically hung out to dry, including his family, including, like I said, a 2-week-old baby. His wife had just given birth before they moved, and they were hung out to dry. And I never heard in CNN one time express any kind of sympathy for Garrett O'Boyle, for Steve Friend, for Marcus Allen, for any of the other FBI agents that became whistleblowers. I never heard it for the IRS whistleblowers, Mr. Chapley, God, it was Chapley and Ziegler. Yeah, those guys like did went above and beyond due diligence when it came to Hunter Biden and his laptop and his taxes and everything else. And once again, people who are in charge over at the IRS were like, no, we're not going to be pursuing this any further. You know, the way that these people just that's fine, that's dismissed. That we're not even going to talk about that. But this deserves to be spotlighted. It's the most disgusting double standard you could possibly have. So, anyway, we're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up today. So let's move on to the next one, because what was this one going to be from? I better not get into that one. I'm not quite ready to handle the levels of rage I'm going to be at on that one. But there's definitely something else we can go over, because I had a few things on the whole DOGE discussion, and that was part of it, but there was several others. Oh, that's right. That's right. This was the one I was going to play. This one's actually a great one. So I'm not sure. I think this is a freshman to Congress. He's either that, or he hasn't really been a part of a committee that was public and was often captured on film very often, because I haven't seen this member of the House yet. But if he is a freshman to the House of Representatives, whew, man, he's got a great kickoff so far. But this is his questioning time with some witnesses. Chip Roy is the chairman. I think this is. It's not the Committee on DOGE. That's headed by Marjorie Taylor Greene. This hearing is chaired by Chip Roy, like I said, and it might be on. It might just be on the general waste, fraud, and abuse of federal agencies. But either way, the point is that this guy goes on and he brings up some incredible points, but the most important one, and the one that he kind of closes with, is he draws such a stark contrast between Democrats only 15, 20 years ago and Democrats today, and the places they choose to pick their battles. And wow, what a stark contrast there is today. So it just, once again, it kind of goes to show you that there's a deeper reason this is going on. This has nothing to do with a principled stance against anything related to a morals against, the treatment of federal employees. This is not about that at all. It's about absolute rage, like seeing red and nothing else when they hear the name Donald Trump. And now when they hear the name Elon Musk, it's like they just see red entirely and they just fly into complete anger. And it's crazy too, because once again, in this hearing, I think they also bring it up, this ridiculous idea that they're trying to cut Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. It's like, we're the ones that have done the math, and you'll hear this from a lot of conservatives in the House, and especially people like Thomas Massey, who actually have done the math. And I think, I hope I'm wrong about this, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, this would really be sad, that David Schweikert actually was either lost or didn't come back to Congress or whatever it was. I can't remember for sure. Because if that was the case, they really lost a guy who seriously was incredibly mathematically savvy and was able to really put into layman's terms the levels of irresponsibility, of misunderstanding, of recklessness, and of betrayal that the federal government had been engaged, and as well as just flat out lying about the levels of incompetence to the American people by not explaining to them the gravity of just how bad we are in the shape we're in right now when it comes to the debt. And he put it into great terms. But one thing he'll explain here is that, Democrats are trying to breathe down our neck about this. First of all, not only has the president and every Republican in the House and the Senate vowed that we're not going to be cutting Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, or anything like that. Now, they're going to use a talking point in one of these clips that they already did cut Medicare and Medicaid. No, they didn't. You know what they did? And they're going to use this as a talking point. So don't fall for it. This is seriously something important. Do not fall for this bullshit. They cut people who were illegal that were getting it. They cut people who didn't qualify that were getting it. They were talking about having a little bit more of a standard to make sure that people were following through with their duties in terms of keeping contact with recipients to make sure their situations and their status hadn't changed, or maybe they hadn't died. Like Donald Trump actually went over this in the speech last night, where he discussed how many people. There's tons of people over the age of 100. There's multiple people over the age of 150. Several people over the age of 200. And as I said one time, the oldest guy was over 350 years old. And Donald Trump made a pretty funny joke and said, guy older than the country itself was receiving a Social Security check. So isn't that something? The funniest joke he said, though, was, I think RFK, we may have underestimated or overestimated how important your job may have been. Apparently, we have 150-year-old people running around this country all over the place. It was pretty good. He delivered it fantastic. But anyway, yeah, that's so. I was going to bring this up before too, and I'll just mention it briefly now. I'll probably talk about it again later, but there's some real concern among people out there that don't know this. And when they hear that they're cutting it, they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know that they're not cutting it. If they are cutting it to anyone, it's to illegals and to people who are blatantly not supposed to be receiving it in the first place. It's mentioned by several other senators, that like able-bodied men with no history of physical or mental disability, that have no signs when they're interviewed of anything. It's just somebody completely irresponsible that is, or somebody, that's friends with them that manages to be accepted into some sort of position where they can get them some kind of check without having to really be too concerned about whether or not they're going to be busted for fraud or not. It's people that are defrauding the federal government by being ineligible and receiving funds anyway. Those people are going to be cut, yes. And that's how they will save a little bit of money, at least, for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and food stamps and SNAP. It's I'm thinking of what's the one for the young newborns and mothers. I can't remember, and it's discussed a lot. But anyway, the point is that, like, once again, programs that we've all agreed to, that we've all stated that we are funding, and they're there for a good reason, and they should remain. Got no problem with that, but that money needs to be going for the thing it's supposed to go to. It's not supposed to be going to 30-year-old Mexicans who just arrived in this country and have no, or 28-year-old Chinese people who just arrived in the country. They have no intentions of doing anything productive for the country. Nothing. I mean, none of that is supposed to be happening. And so, if anyone's getting cut, that's who it's going to be. It's not going to be someone who's getting a Social Security check and getting Medicare that has worked all their lives and has paid into their retirement and is getting a check, and those people are all going to continue getting their check, you know. Now, if there's ever a question about that sort of thing raised when you receive your check, I mean, you know, you may have to prove who you are, but I doubt there's going to be much difficulty in that. And I think if it's for the benefit of making sure that the country has enough money to keep paying to the taxpayers of America, then they should have no problem in divulging the information. And as a matter of fact, one other important aspect is that now this has just been floated around, but a lot of the money that's been saved has been talked about. They were talked about $5,000 checks to the population for all the money they were able to cut in these certain agencies. For Social Security and Medicare, they were also talking about to people receiving Social Security that for all the fraud they were able to cut from Social Security, they would be giving bigger checks out to seniors for a year or two or something like that. It was like they had a really interesting plan coming up for that. These are the things that Trump and his administration are actually talking about doing. Not even to mention, once again, he reiterated that his goal is to have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits. No tax on any of those things. And, you know, that to me, if nothing else, should show you where his head's at. I mean, he has no intention and no plans and not even a hint of a desire to harm the American people or the money that they've earned. This is about one very specific thing, and that is the betrayal of the American people and the betrayal of using their tax money by sending it to all this other garbage that it doesn't belong in. So anyway, this is a scene with that congressman I was talking about that is going to give some pretty good, or actually use his time in in this hearing for some pretty good questions and to make some pretty good points. So we'll discuss this one next. Let me see if I can find it. Unfortunately, maybe they'll show his name on screen, but I can't remember his name now. So, yeah, we'll check to see if I can find it here. But there we go. Okay. What the hell? Okay. Oh, that's right. So, okay, let's go ahead and do this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to speak frankly at first to the American people. We're nearing $37 trillion in national debt. What does that mean? That means that each and every U.S. taxpayer owes over $323,000. Okay? What does that mean? That means when the EPIC, which is the Economic Policy Innovation Center, says we have 18 trillion left. That's it. 18 trillion left to take out. And we're spending $2 trillion in debt every year. Folks, we're at the precipice of a debt,
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, too. When we're this close to the edge. This is what the left will not tell you, and this is why they keep throwing all this, all these accusations against Donald Trump, and that it's Trump's agenda, it's Trump's administration, it's them that's doing all of it. No, this is a situation brought on by the Democrats, and they're spending during COVID, and they're spending on the border, and they're spending on illegals, they're spending in Ukraine, which, by the way, there'll be an interesting point about that later on. But this is their way of passing the buck and blaming Trump for everything. It's his tax cuts. I'll have something else about that later, too. I'm sorry to be, foreshadowing all this stuff, but it's coming. I have clips for it, so just bear with me. But the point is that as he said, look at what we're talking about here. Look at the dire straits that we are in. Look at the position that we're in. You want to make sure the taxpayers get their Social Security checks and their Medicare and Medicaid insurance delivered. Everyone else does as well, contrary to what you believe. Like the Republicans do as well, but the only difference is they're realistic about it. They recognize that, okay, we want that. That means that we can't just keep flippantly sending money to Ukraine and saying as long as the war takes. That means that we can't just say that if you're a part of the military, we'll pay for your transgender mutilation. That means that there's going to be a lot of things we're going to have to cut. One thing we will not cut, though, is Medicare, Medicaid, all these social entitlements. Because we believe that people deserve that money, and that's not what we're going to do. Now, we need to look through those places because, like I said, there's people who are getting that money that should not be. And if you want to get mad at anybody in that environment, you should be getting mad at those people. But once again, this is not Donald Trump's fault. This is not the Republicans' fault. This is the fault of particularly an administration who decided to cave in to just about everything that the left wanted. We wanted Green New Deal policies with wind farms and solar panels and electric vehicles and all that. I mean, look at what they were spending money on. The Inflation Reduction Act. Guess what? It didn't do anything to reduce inflation. And as a matter of fact, it made it worse. The American Rescue Plan. It put us in more trouble than we were in before. They spent so much money with all these bills. And, not to mention the fact that 14 days to slow the spread became 1 month, became half a year, became a year to slow the spread. And what happened during that time? Our economy freaking went into a huge, huge death spiral that meant that we were going to be in serious trouble as far as jump-starting the economy. It didn't happen. We've been in financial trouble ever since, and it led to some other problems like, once again, people getting comfortable with work from home, including teachers, by the way. One thing they always love to bring up is that you can't possibly say that about our teachers. Our teachers deciding that you needed to have 5-year-olds wear masks and refusing to not wear masks in their own classroom meant that you had children that were unable to learn based on speech recognition. They were unable to get a proper education, and we have plummeted. There are now, I think it was 25% of students that graduate from high school have below average mathematics skills. Like 40% that have proper English skills. This is pathetic. This is absolutely pathetic, but that's your tax dollars at work, paying for the teachers that stay at home and have remote learning and come in and do a half-assed job. And by the way, also want to only talk about LGBT rights and want to teach everybody that there are more than two genders and that men can give birth and, things that seem like laughably stupid points. But guess what? You want to ask a Democrat that question seriously? I'll tell you what they'll say. Anyway, let's get back to this because I could go on all day about this, but anyway, let's get back to it. Oh, hold on. I need to, I got a wireless mouse and it's dying, so I need to plug it in. Okay. Is it this way or is it the other way? No, it's this way. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that.
Like a debt cycle. We are literally at a point
I just
in
said.
which the dollar will be worth nothing. What does that mean? And we know Social Security goes bankrupt in 8 years, right? Medicare goes bankrupt in 10 years.
Bam.
And then 15 years from now, the dollar is completely devalued and worth nothing. So what does that mean?
That is the
That
death
means
of America.
your pension, the money in your bank, your savings is nothing. It's worthless. So what are we doing? We're trying to save this country. We're trying to save your pensions. We're trying to save your bank accounts. We're trying to save this country for the next generation. And it would be nice if we had help. But instead, we have people that are fighting us on this.
That's
And,
that's
they
what's sick.
I think that I would hate to be in the Democratic Party right now because you're in a really bad bind. You're having to defend all of this crazy spending, all of this crazy waste. So how do you do it? You do ad hominem attacks. You attack the messenger. Oh, Elon Musk, right? He's rich. He must be evil. Right?
Once again,
that's
yep.
that's the
Yeah.
attacks. Really, you can't do any better than that, right? Let's talk on the policy. On the policy.
Oh, they can't
Help
talk about
us.
that.
We're
They
trying
can't
to
talk
save
about
this
that.
country. This is what.
When you
and
talk about
Elon
that, they
Musk,
start
who's
getting
making
pissed.
no money doing this, is trying to save this country.
Once
Why?
again.
Because he is invested in the United States of America more than anybody, right? So I think that we should embrace it. In fact, not a single company, governor of any state would ever turn down Elon Musk and his team of DOGE from coming in and providing free services to right the course and financially in any state or organization. It's
true.
ridiculous that
It's
we
true.
would demonize someone that loves this country so much.
And is so
Mr.
successful,
Whitman, the
yeah.
formation of agencies via the executive action is not new, right? The formation of DOGE is not new.
This is
Can
really
you-
important.
You know, are you familiar with any other previous
is
presidencies
really
where
important.
they've
Check this
formed
out.
organizations like DOGE via executive action?
Yeah, so actually the agency that DOGE is occupying is one that was created in a previous administration. So it is something that happens routinely. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, there's been the Office of Budget Management was created, Environmental Protection Agency was created, the U.S. Digital Service, which is now DOGE, was created all by executive order, right?
And actually one other I'd add is USAID was originally created through an executive order by President
Notice
Kennedy.
that.
And then
Notice
later
that.
Formalized.
And then, Madam Chair, I have a
there's a-
video I would like.
Just real quick. So all of their stomping of their feet and going crazy about how the president doesn't have the authority to create an agency like this. Really, the president or Donald Trump president? I think it's more like the latter because, nobody's complained about any of those other agencies that were formed. No one complained when, and here's the problem. They're going to reference this not in this clip, but in another clip, once again, that the idea of the Congress being the ones to appropriate the finances to go to these causes and whatever. Guess what? No, not really. They appropriated their oversight function and their power of the purse function in so many ways to government agencies that have no elections, they have no public, information, or nobody is involved in the democratic process. They're appointed by whoever appoints. I don't even know how they're appointed. They should be appointed by Congress, but even if they are, who knows what kind of people they are? Who knows? Like in the last administration, they got probably the biggest gun rights anti-advocate, basically gun control advocate. They got possibly the biggest one in the country to run for head of ATF. It sounds like there may be a bit of a conflict of interest there, just a wee bit, but that's just, my opinion. But once again, you don't just put these people into their positions because of their record anymore. You put them into their positions because they fit your party's ideological bend. And this was a guy who couldn't even tell you what, basically didn't even want to discuss the idea of, he tried to say that an assault rifle was designated as any caliber, any rifle with a detachable magazine that has a caliber above a .22. That's like most of the rifles in the country. And in California, they found a way to really screw up the way that, the gun market works. But the point is that, a 22 long rifle, that's going to be good at home defense, maybe, kind of, hopefully, probably will. But if you're a hunter at all, 22 long rifle is going to kill maybe small game, you shoot a 22 at a deer, it probably wouldn't kill the deer. It'd put it in a lot of pain, but you probably wouldn't kill it unless you managed to hit it in the head or heart. And it's so unbelievable that even some of the senators were like, you realize how ridiculous that is, right? That sounds like, because once again, when they talk about weapons of war, not to get on this subject too long, but just to illustrate what I'm talking about, they conflate the idea of semi-automatic and automatic. Semi-automatic means the same thing across weapons like pistols as it does to rifles. It means you pull the trigger once and one bullet comes out. You pull the trigger and you fire one time. When they say assault rifles and military-style rifles, there's one big problem. There's a selector switch on military rifles that allows for automatic fire, not semi-automatic fire, automatic fire, which means that you hold the trigger down and the gun will fire off as many rounds and over again as long as you have the trigger pressed down. That's fully automatic. They also oftentimes have 3-round burst where it will fire 3 rounds in quick. I lost the word I was going to say. Fire off. I'll just say 3 rounds quickly in succession. There we go. And then you have to press the trigger again before it will fire off another 3 rounds. But once again, you could depress the trigger long enough for it to shoot 1 or 2 and release, and it would only fire those 1 or 2 as well. So, those things are, I would say, okay, those are kind of reasonable to have as laws for United States homeowner, or like United States as far as gun laws. If that's the hill that Democrats wanted to die on, or that Republicans would have to capitulate to for this gun control debate, okay, so be it. But the idea that, banning more is going to make this huge difference, first of all, most mass shootings happen with illegal weapons. Secondly, even if they didn't, most of the mass shooters that have committed mass shootings and got their weapons that weren't stolen weapons, got them through legal channels while passing a background check and never raised any alarms. There's just sick people out there that want to do sick things, and really the only way you can defend against mass shootings in schools is to, as been suggested before, harden the target. Make sure that there's armed guards in the facility, and that the entrances and exits are all being watched and patrolled, and that the doors are locked from the outside and not the inside. That's one of the most important things, as well as, once again, if there's armed guards on site, that is a major deterrent. And as people have mentioned before, we have armed guards at banks, at any business that is in charge of some type of stock of inventory that is worth a significant amount of money. They're going to have an armed guard there. And our children are supposed to be the most precious thing in the world to us. You wouldn't have armed guards there? What are you worried about? Are you worried about the guards, that they're going to somehow just start going postal and for no reason? Because we do know that when it comes to school shootings, it's almost the profile has been set. The only other thing they don't want to bring up because of the demographic is mass shootings in their largest number, which is with handguns, and happen in the inner city, and it's usually gang violence. So once again, that's not going to fit the profile, and that's going to bring about more requests for more law enforcement in bad neighborhoods where they don't want more police officers because it's racist. So it's just so backwards and stupid. But and it's just the same thing. Stupid people that have no idea what they're talking about, making stupid policies that do the opposite of what the American people want. And I don't know, maybe elect people based on their skills and not their rhetoric. It'd be good, but anyway. Well, this is the good finale to this video, so here we go.
To end with, that just let's review if we could cue that to remind, and I want to remind my Democratic friends at a point in which you once had the majority of the American people on your side. This is what your party believed in.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
I've read it, and where it says the president should, the president will.
Among the 800 recommendations,
It's crazy.
eliminating
Remember how
12%
high
of
of
the
a
federal
approval
workforce,
record Bill
merging
Clinton
some
had?
government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the
Even
Bureau
with
of
his
Alcohol,
record with
Tobacco,
women?
and Firearms, closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington.
From the day I took office, one of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in
Oh, I love
rooting
this
out
one.
wasteful spending. We thought that it was entirely appropriate for our governments and our agencies to try to root out waste, large and small, in a systematic way.
Imagine
it
that.
means cutting some programs that I think are worthy, but we may not be able to afford right now. A lot of the action is in Congress and legislative, but in the meantime, we don't need to wait for Congress in order to do something about wasteful spending that's out there. We
That's
haven't seen as
sacrilegious.
much action out of Congress as we'd like, and that's why we launched on our own initiative the campaign to cut waste. And we're going to keep on finding every possible way
dare
that
you.
we can do that, even if Congress is not acting.
Oh my gosh!
There you go.
How dare you, sir?
I think it speaks for itself. My time has expired.
You notice that? You notice that? Barack Obama himself, the messiah of the left until recently. Now it seems like people are a little more skeptical these days after Kamala Harris. But there he is. There's the man himself sidestepping Congress because they're not doing their job. And nobody raised an eyebrow. Imagine that. Isn't that incredible? This idea that Congress has to do it, Congress has to approve. It's only when it's convenient to Democrats that they bring up anything at all involving the Constitution. And it's so disgusting. I'm getting so tired of it. It's on a loop over and over again. They will reference the Constitution over and over again when it involves their party's interest. But as soon as it's something that helps the Republicans, oh no, this is a constitutional crisis now. Fuck you. Grow up and get over yourselves. This is ridiculous. So, I mean, what more kind of proof do you need of this ridiculous party's intentions? But wait, there's more. I guess I'm going to get to it now. The reason is because I have to let you guys know about something. I have a little bit of an Achilles heel. I have a burning hatred for Sam Cedar. And there's a reason. There's a reason. I have never heard a more smug, arrogant, just completely misinformed, and totally just flat out lying. I've never heard a bigger government shill, Democrat shill, manipulative, makes a whole show out of nothing but propaganda, focuses all of his attention like an obsessive lunatic on certain right-wing pundits, demonizes the hell out of them. This guy is a absolute disgrace. Whoever watches this piece of garbage's show is probably getting a message that is like so counterproductive to anything that would benefit the country that, you know, I dare say it's like a cult programming. But worst of all, he walks away from everything with this smug attitude, like he just won and beat everybody. When in actuality, anybody that actually was paying attention to the discussion will recognize this guy's a fool. This guy is a clown. This guy is a moron. This guy is not only all of those things, but he's honestly pretty fucking dangerous in what he says. He probably more than anybody else in the party, he absolutely despises anybody with money, at least any more money than him. Patrick Bet-David actually put him on the spot and nailed him with that discussion, because the way he makes his tax policy is based on supposed adjustment for inflation. You'll hear it in this clip, but I'll just tell you right now, it just so happens to cut off, in terms of the top marginal tax rate, just so happens to cut off just after the amount of money that he makes, just barely a little bit more than the amount of money that he makes. So he wouldn't have to worry about it. But, anybody else that makes more than that, they'd have, and that's what I mean. Like, this guy just despises those people. He certainly despises people with any charisma or any kind of show that's got any kind of traction or popularity. You know why? Because his show sucks. His show is terrible. His show is pathetic. His show is more focused on Dave Rubin and taking down Dave Rubin, or taking down Steven Crowder, or taking down all these people. This is the guy, by the way, who Ethan Klein, the other little shill from H3H3, the guy that used to go from goofy internet jokes to a moralizing asswipe that has on someone with as low moral standing as Hassan Piker, who's just about on the same level almost, I guess, as Sam Cedar is. He's just a guy who will defend terrorists from from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed. This guy, that guy has no freaking, no type of conscience whatsoever. He's just and yet he's a, what's it called? He's a Twitch influencer. He's an influencer. Let's look at the influencer. As I've said before, please, if I ever get to a point where I refer to myself as an influencer, just stop watching my show and find a group of people to kick my ass, because I hope I never am stupid enough to refer to myself that way. It's such a stupid term. Nobody's influencing shit when they are this pathetic. And on top of that, it's just like, all the stuff he does is, he used to have a fairly large, he has a large amount of subscribers, but the thing is that nobody watches his shitty show, because he's got that issue where back in the day when it was all about subs to the channel, everybody was looking to get the most subs, and then their content goes to hell and nobody watches them anymore, so they have this giant subscriber count and no money coming in and no content that anybody watches. And it's because all of his content is extremely radical leftist propaganda. And but anyway, the thing with Ethan Klein from H3H3 was this grand plan they had to bait Steven Crowder into a debate, because there was a disagreement about trans shit from Ethan, and Steven Crowder offered to have a debate with Ethan. He made a comment like, this guy's going to be a layup. He's going to be easy to debate, because Ethan doesn't debate people. He's a coward, and he loves to talk shit, but he wouldn't ever want to get into a debate with people. And Steven called it 100% right, because you know what he did? He called up his little buddy, Sam Cedar, and as soon as they were supposed to start the debate, he brings Sam Cedar into the call. And then Sam Cedar starts trying to have a debate with Steven. It's like, no, I'm not debating you. I was supposed to debate Ethan. He's a coward. He needs somebody to fight his own battle for him, because he knows nothing about what he's talking about. This started as an argument between me and him, and you're going to bring in Sam Cedar to fight your battle. Sorry. And as far as Sam Cedar goes, there's a reason, which you could tell this really got to Sam. He couldn't stand it when he brought this up. There's a reason people like Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David, which unfortunately PBD did invite him on the show. I doubt he'll be getting a return request. But, like any major show isn't going to have you on. He called him out on that, and like you could tell it got under his skin, because he knows that yeah, there is a reason he doesn't have him on. Now, when Emma Vigeland, his little fluffer that's runs his, I don't know, production of whatever that's worth, she went on Tim Pool's show not too long ago. This one is a pretty viral clip, as a matter of fact, where she tried to state that a neo-Nazi was inspired by Tim's content to go and kill people at a black church or something, and he tore her a new one because it was like he actually knew all the information, and she is going by this idea that, oh, this guy watched one of your videos. It's like he linked to a short segment about a minute long or less in one of Tim Pool's videos that was actually not really even involving Tim much at all, but they were talking about a very selective or very specific point on a very specific topic, took that one point and said that that inspired a mass shooting, and he couldn't stand it at that point, so he brought the heat down. And one of the funniest parts was why don't you think you have any advertisers? Why don't you think anybody wants to advertise under Sam? Because once again, he makes he definitely doesn't make as much money as his subscriber count would kind of allow you to assume, but it's because, once again, he got a bunch of subscribers when the channel was first starting out, early days of YouTube, but now nobody watches his crappy content anymore because it's garbage, and it's just his fantasy world ridiculous rants. But the other thing is that the reason people don't want to, like, she tries to state that people don't want to, this is so pathetic. This is so pathetic. She says the reason that they don't get many advertisers is because they're trying to fight the system. So people that are establishment don't want to advertise with Sam because he stands up to the establishment. He's part of the Democrat Party. They are the fucking establishment. Are you kidding me? You know what happened on social media to conservatives? They got blamed for like every type of violent event that happened in the country because of their party. And whenever there was a big, controversy at YouTube where they had to pull advertisers were leaving or whatever, guess what? It was always the conservative channels they cracked down on. They were supposed to be white extremists, and they were domestic white terrorists, and they were going to commit acts of violence, and da-da-da-da. Nobody's going to have any problem aligning with a leftist who has a pretty mainstream leftist agenda. The problem is that Sam Cedar openly doesn't have a mainstream leftist agenda. He has a radical leftist agenda. No problem with kids who think they're trans getting butchered at age, 13, 14. He doesn't really ever state an age. He just says that whenever they feel like they are of a different gender, they should be allowed to go receive hormone therapy and cross-sex surgeries and all this other, like. So basically, he thinks it's fine to ruin children's lives after they become adults because they made a silly idea at a young age, like everybody does, into a reality, unlike most people do, because the ideology says that's good. In fact, the ideology says that will decrease the risk of suicide, which is bullshit. But that's the bad faith of this guy. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter how much harm you're doing. If it's a benefit to the Democrat agenda, he'll parrot it. He will parrot it in a minute. So the reason though is because Benny Johnson is on this clip, as well as I can't remember her name, but it'll come up. Another great guest that is on Piers Morgan. I'm not a fan of Piers' show, but they do such a good job in this one that I was like, okay, first of all, I got to cover this because I got to show everyone what a snake Sam Cedar is, number one. And number two, this is just such a brutal smackdown of this little bitch that I got to do this. And so here, this one's going to be a little bit longer, but this is the clip involving those parties I just mentioned. And by the way, I do have, now it's obvious where they are. This isn't like, edited in a way that's misleading. I threw some edits in there that I think are kind of important, let's say. So I hope you enjoy, because I turned it into a bit of a spectacle just for you guys. So let's go ahead and get to this one. This is probably the most important. I don't know if I'll even be able to get to the Trump speech last night. Maybe I'll touch on it a little bit, but because I've done quite a while already, and this is going to be a fairly long clip. So let's get to that. And once again, this is mostly about Doge, and of course Sam Cedar hates it, and it's just it's insane. It's insane the kinds of garbage that these people will say, and the line that they'll tote to freaking try to undermine Donald Trump. But this is it on full display. So yeah, here we go. Okay. I wonder why full screen doesn't work. Oh, well. Oh. Okay, there we go. Now, let's go ahead and start this thing, and... Oh, whoops. Hang on just a second. Sorry, no volume. No, there's volume.
Sam, let's talk for a moment about the other big thing that's going on, which is this whole DOGE stuff with Elon Musk. You, I think, posted that the idea that DOGE is in any way about efficiency is absolutely a joke. They're not doing an audit. They're destroying the apparatus of our government. What do you base that on?
Well, audits are done regularly of agencies by inspector generals. The first thing they did was to fire all those inspector generals and not replace them. A. B, audits that lead to firings within a couple of days are obviously not being done.
Obviously,
the notion that this is about efficiency when you're laying off thousands of IRS agents, when it is well known that every dollar spent at the IRS returns for the government $6 or $7.
Okay, first of all, we got to do it already. No, bullshit. That's ridiculous. Now, first of all, it might not have been so much of a problem that would have had a necessity to fire a bunch of IRS agents if Joe Biden hadn't passed legislation to pack the IRS with about 80,000 new IRS agents, which, by the way, they also were requiring training for them to start carrying around firearms. Because if there's anything the IRS needs to help them do their job, it's firearms now, which I thought, once again, I was just talking about this, but I thought that Democrats hate the scary firearms, but apparently not with IRS agents who, let's face it, probably are the last people in the world you'd want to be carrying firearms. But listen to this as we go along. Listen to the way he talks about the IRS. This is a joke.
You're clearly not talking about efficiency here as measured in any other way other than allowing wealthy people to get away with cheating on their taxes. I could go on, but there's absolutely no evidence that there's a single audit going on. To the extent that they've saved any money, it has been largely dismissed as clerical errors on their part. And
okay, so the clerical errors, as I've said before, the clerical errors were, millions of dollars for Sesame Street in Afghanistan, huh? The clerical errors were spreading transgender ideology in Brazil. The clerical errors were releasing a comic book with a transgender superhero in Peru or wherever the fuck it was, and putting on an opera for another few $100,000 in Ireland. And to top it all off, it was to spread DEI initiatives in Africa. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the clerical errors you're talking about, and this is just the minor stuff, which just at USAID was in the tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, which once again, by the way, that might not be enough to make that big of a difference in the national debt, but you got to do something. You got to start somewhere. You've got to start audit, which, by the way, you think that's not much. Just wait till they start auditing the Pentagon. Anyway, because, that's the thing. They're complaining about this now. They usually hate the military-industrial complex, although they've been kind of cozying up to it lately, so they probably won't have that many. They won't be nearly as for it as they would have been before. But I wonder if when we see the fact that they wouldn't shut up about how they can't pass a tax audit, which they can't, and I'm foreseeing though now that, despite the fact that this has been going on for something like 5 or 6 years now, no, more than that. It was before Trump's presidency, before his first term. So, it's been going on for a long time now, and they never brought it up until they had Trump to pin it on, which is bullshit. But once again, it's only a problem when the Republicans are in charge, just like Scott Jennings said in that early CNN clip. So let's listen to this hack talk some more about this partisan bullshit and make hypocritical points. So, yeah.
We still have no substantiation about it. So it's
well, that's
a joke.
not, hang on, that's not true. I mean,
Even
some of the stuff that came out about USAID, for example, some of the way that American taxpayers' money was being squandered on ridiculous projects.
Exactly.
And it wasn't insignificant sums of money.
Wait a second. You can determine that you can have an opinion that it's squandered. I can have an opinion that it's squandered, but it's been appropriated by the Congress. And in America, we have actually both statutory, constitutional, and court cases that say the President of the United States and the executive branch cannot decide unilaterally that they're not going to appropriate money that Congress has appropriated. I mean,
now hold on just a second. Let me just put this into terms and put this to rest. Hopefully, at least enough to recognize why this is a bullshit argument. The Congress was supposed to have the power of the purse. This is true. The Congress was supposed to be in charge of where money was to be sent. And, there's also, which, by the way, Congress was supposed to, as I've said before, also be the body that decided whether or not we were going to go to war along with the executive branch until George Bush Jr. actually blew up that freaking idea. So, but that's a separate story for a separate day. Once again, I was no fan of George W. Bush at all. I think he was a terrible president. But here's the thing. The Congress was supposed to have all the powers of the purse, all the powers of spending, and decide where tax dollars were going to be sent. As a matter of fact, actually, taxes weren't implemented at all until post-Civil War. Then they went away again, and then they started again, then they never went away again, I believe. I think that was how they're... I mean, I know for a fact that was... Because it was after the Civil War, we had run out of a ton of money. We had never implemented an income tax. We had survived on tariffs, actually, for a very long time. But we implemented our first income tax at that point, or federal tax at that point, because actually under President Lincoln, I believe, he came out and told the people, we are dangerously low on money. We can't afford to pay for essential things after this war. We are making a commitment to the people of the country that we need to implement an income tax, but as soon as we reach a certain level of income, we will no longer collect an income tax or collect taxes from you. They signed it into law. They collected the amount of money. They reached the goal. They ended the tax. It's crazy, right? They actually kept their word back then. But then it was in the 1900s. It was, I believe, after World War I or around World War I when we implemented tax again. And I don't remember if they even said there was a plan to... Yeah, I'm a little bit fuzzy on the second one, because part of me says that they actually did cancel it again and then restarted it and it stayed, but I can't remember. I just know that it was meant to be like, yeah, tax has always been around. It's been important. No, that was in fact why we left, why we tried to end our colonial status with Britain and become an independent state. And this idea here is ridiculous on a whole nother level too, because guess what? You know what these bureaucrats do, these agencies that get set up? They make the decisions on where the taxpayer money gets sent. They make the decisions on what happens with it. And who do they tell? I mean, how many of you out there knew anything about what USAID was spending our American tax dollar money on? How many of you knew it? That's going to come up in a second, but I can tell you that I would guess probably barely anybody knew. I would probably guess that probably nobody, as I said before, knew anything about USAID or even heard of USAID. However, once you find out about it and you find out they're doing things that you would rather not have your tax dollars going to, it becomes kind of important to you, right? Well, here's the problem. They relegated their ability to make decisions about tax money when they formed these agencies. That's why people hate the bureaucratic state. It's an overreach of government by creating agencies with the sole purpose of deciding where to spend money without any kind of congressional approval, and then having to report to Congress and talk about it, which in this day and age, they don't even want to do that. Planned Parenthood refuses to release their income levels, and they managed to apply for a small business PPP loan during the pandemic, and they got it. Because somehow there's some kind of ridiculous bullshit. They were able to be able to make the conditions of a small business somehow. I don't know how. There's Planned Parenthoods all over the fucking country, so they definitely are not a small business. But yeah, that's just one example. I mean, you talk about government agencies that waste people's money, and then he tries to bring this up like it's a tax issue, which is going to get a bigger issue later. But this is so beyond a tax issue, because once again, like, look at where the money for a military budget has been spent on DEI training, on pronoun training, on it's like, and by the way, ever since Donald Trump took office, guess what? Military enlistment rates have shot up like a rocket. And you know why? Because they actually trust the president that's in charge now. They actually trust the president that's in charge, that has committed to negotiating peace deals with countries around the world, and has made sure that we are not going to appear like ridiculous, senile fools in front of the world whenever we appear. We're going to appear like we actually have something to back it up. So everything he mentions is stupid, because Congress relegated this whole responsibility a long time ago because it just became too much for them. But the problem is that when the American people don't like it, his excuse is, well, there's transparency. Even if that's true, we have to go, now we have to look at Congress, and we have to look at this agency and that agency and this agency and that agency we never even heard of, to find out where our tax dollars are going. No, sorry, Sam, fuck you. That's not a part of our original founding document. That has nothing to do with the Constitution. That has to do with stupid rules that the Congress decided they needed to pass because it was just too much for them to handle. And now they're at a point where they don't even want to handle half the other shit that they're supposed to do, and quite frankly makes them seem like they're becoming more and more useless. It's understandable why Congress has such a low approval rating, and Sam Cedar hates Congress too, but in this instance he's going to stand up for him. Why? Because they're supposed to be the ones making the decisions about where our tax dollars. Fuck off. Fuck off.
The line item video has been found to be unconstitutional. We have the Impoundment Control Act from 1974. We have Train v. New York City from 1974, which is a Supreme Court case which enforces that. What they're doing is fundamentally illegal. I mean, you may think that some of the spending is not worthy. I may think it's not worthy, but that's just not the way our government works.
Okay. Yeah. Julian, you were shaking your head there.
because it doesn't seem that the government is working. As a layman,
exactly,
when the USAID is exposed in the fashion that it has been, and all of a sudden we have this transparency that we've never had in my lifetime.
None of this stuff was hidden at
and
all.
here we go.
None of this stuff was hidden at all. It's just that
so you're telling me that the
attention to it.
average American knew that we were funding friggin' operas for trans people in who knows
average
where?
American was interested in
nobody
what
knew
USAID
this.
Was interested,
was
yeah,
supporting,
yeah.
they
Come
could have
on,
just
man.
gone
Do
to
you
the website
really
and
believe that?
See, she's making the mistake of thinking that Sam Seer has any
people
kind
knew this and this was
of good
common
faith
knowledge.
going
And
into the
there's
discussion.
No
Because it's
question
100%
that some of
true.
this was a
None of
slush
this was
fund for the
secret.
CIA.
Well, actually, you know what? The truth is, you can both be right here.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Sam is right that it was there to be found, and Gillian's right that absolutely nobody told the American people about the specifics. So actually, you can both be
what can
right.
happen in our process of government?
No, I understand. I'm not saying you're
Congress
wrong.
can vote to
I'm not saying it
defund
wasn't there. I'm not
Yeah,
saying it
'cause
wasn't
they're
there to
so
be
good at
found.
that.
But Benny, it was only when Elon
This
Musk and his
transparency bullshit
young
is
team of
God.
guys
Yes,
with their sabers got into it. They found this stuff, right, and told
They
people.
didn't find it. They just they publicized it.
Well, exactly. That's how the
And
yeah, but Sam,
they
that's how
don't
the American.
That's called finding it, jackass. And you know what else is interesting about this too? You ever watch a session of Congress where they're interviewing these people? You know what they do? They hide, they obfuscate, they point fingers, they're hazy, they don't recall, they come up with every excuse in the book to not answer the questions of people that are asking the questions. So go to hell with your ridiculous ideas. Once again, he knows all this about Congress, but he doesn't care because this is Donald Trump's administration we're talking about, and Elon Musk is evil, and and Jillian, that's her name. Jillian is right 100% about like the American people. I'm sure it like 99.99% of them had no idea that USAID that it even existed, let alone what it spent its money on. So you can't. I'm sorry, Sam. You can't just look up the spending of an agency you don't know that exists. So yeah, you want to look up. Let me look up what Congress sends their money to for spending decisions. Like, okay, all right. Because I guarantee you, it wasn't Congress that passed the... Congress is definitely able to be viewed by the public, without a doubt. But the agencies that they oversee, no. And that's where the bureaucratic state, the whole bureaucracy and the swamp and the idea of the deep state itself that's where all of this comes from. It comes from the idea that organizations that are shadowy, that we don't know about, make all the decisions. And once they decide something, they have all the levers of power. They have all the ability to avoid congressional oversight. The president doesn't have to be informed about any of this stuff because jackasses like Sam Cedar will run defense for them because it gets across the agenda he's hoping to get across.
Have authority.
That's how the
They
American
don't
people found
have
out about it.
authority to cut it.
Yes.
So Congress, Republicans control every house of Congress. They control the presidency. They could pass a bill tomorrow.
No, they
saying,
couldn't.
We
There's a
don't want to
filibuster.
fund these things. But what's happening when they cut USAID is you've got literally 400,000 meals.
Oh, and listen to this.
For children who are technically wasting away. It's in Africa. Maybe my guests don't care about that. But the fact is that they're sitting in warehouses in Rhode Island and in Georgia right now, food that is pre-digested practically because these kids are starving and it's sitting in warehouses, it's going bad, and they have no way to ship it.
Okay.
Because USAID has been
Yeah,
shut down.
because it's all because of
That's
USAID
not
got.
constitutional or legal.
Okay, Benny.
It's incredible.
It
So I've heard the Constitution thrown around a lot here. All right, let's talk about Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive branch has a clause called the vesting clause. The vesting clause makes one single man that is elected by the whole American people the only position in the federal government that has the entire whole of the country elect him is the President of the United States, who is vested with the power to oversee the executive. And that includes congressional spending. That includes the functionaries of the government, including the commander-in-chief.
Because guess what? Everything that Congress tries to pass has to go across the president's desk and be signed. He just somehow forgot to leave that part out, too. Isn't that interesting? You know, now, from pressure from the American people, sometimes it is the idea, our Constitution puts into place this idea that the accountability for all three co-equal branches, or what are supposed to be co-equal branches of government, is supposed to compel the agency, the branches, along with pressure from the American people, to make sure that their will is being done by their elected representatives, not these mystical Washington bureaucrats that make all these decisions. These are supposed to be civil servants and supposed to be doing the will of their constituents. Everything that they decide on, everything that they pass, has to go across the president's desk for a signature and approval. Now, once again, Sam doesn't give a shit about that. He sure cared when it was Biden. And he also didn't care too much when Biden, you know, superseded his authority and went, even though the Supreme Court said, no, you can't be sending money to repay student loan debt. You can't force the money that taxpayers have sent to the federal government to just go to a bunch of kids with student loan debt because they made bad spending decisions and can't pay off their loans. That's not what the executive branch can do unilaterally. And guess what? Biden did it anyway. You know what's even more egregious? They told him, yeah, you can't just leave the border open. You can't just tell the agents that are working the border that, no, you can't stop people from illegally entering the country. And guess what? Once again, they didn't tell the people, they forced the people to keep letting people illegally into the country. So the executive branch apparently has unlimited power in Sam Cedars' government, but when it's a Republican, oh, no, Congress does this. Congress is in charge. This is what I mean. He's the most bad faith, absolute fucking smug liar I've ever heard try to discuss an issue and debate people and make arguments about these things. It's not, there's no standard but double standard. That's it. That's all he has.
There are appointed judges. There are elected at state and local levels, members of Congress, but only the president is elected by the whole American people. Now, I have a giant
here's
map
where my
in
aide
my
come in.
studio. I don't know if your production team can pop me. There it is. This is what America decided in 2024 in a landslide and with the
let me just go back to that real
the
quick.
whole of the American people. I have a giant map in my studio. I don't know if your
I'm sorry.
production team can
I had
pop
too
me.
much
There
fun
it
with
is. This.
There it is. That's from the 2024 election. And yes, Sam, I'm sure. Go cry about it. Anyway, let's go.
Is what America decided in 2024 in a landslide and with the popular vote. The whole of the American people decided to vest a single man, Donald Trump, to hunt down waste, fraud,
Isn't that map
and abuse.
incredible, though?
Because,
I didn't even realize it
while
until I looked it up
maybe,
this time. My God.
there are some type of programs that you might view as just. What I view as just is feeding the American people.
Exactly.
What I view as just is filling the potholes, educating, healthcare, and the capacity to serve Americans. And so, what?
For illegals and people that are fraudulently getting it, yes. Once
America
again,
voted for was
more
America
lies.
first, and transgender
And look
operas
at
in
his smug
Chile
ass sitting there.
isn't exactly America first. And to say that USAID was
you've said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed
Oh, no,
the
he said a
actual
lot.
Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment
Those
Control
Supreme
Act,
Court cases
none
are
of
really-
that. You can
You have
say
no
that
respect
you
for
don't
any of that
have
stuff.
the right to feed starving children in Africa. That's your prerogative.
Can we address the feed starving children?
I like this
I
too,
can't
by the way.
believe you're going with the starving children.
Yeah.
You're going with
Yeah.
the starving children.
No,
line.
it does. I mean, it does other things that you don't
All
like.
right, let me.
But it
Okay.
also does this.
Chaps, allow the lady in the room to
Was there
speak,
more
please.
USAID money spent?
Chaps,
Was there
let
more
Gillian
USAID
have her say.
on feeding starving children or
Guys,
in
let,
Ukraine in 2014?
guys, let Gillian speak for a moment. Gillian.
Big fan of
The
Jillian.
feeding starving children thing is such a freaking red herring. So first of all, the vast majority of this USAID bloat and corruption
She's trying to explain,
does not
jackass.
go to that. Second of all, we have children starving here in
denying that
America.
some
But
of it
third
that's
of all,
being
and what
cut
you
does?
don't know and what you have not looked into, okay, is that read a book. It's called Save 3 Lives. And it's by the Rodale family. And it has to do with the fact that our big ag companies went into the
Yeah, Sam, you could just look
world
this information
to
up.
addict their soil to our GMO crops. It's a money laundering game. They can grow their crops in their soil far more efficiently and did for thousands of years before ConAgra and Cargill and Monsanto and ADM went in. You just don't know that because you haven't done your homework. So you're like, oh, there's children starving in Africa. But really, it is about billions of dollars going to big ag. That's what that's really about. And I've seen it firsthand when I went to South Sudan and stayed at a refugee camp. So don't play your starving children card. I can't.
Listen, it's not my card. It's just simply the
Oh, yeah, it
reality.
is. It's your
And
card.
the fascinating
It
thing
is
about
your
this,
card, though.
Piers,
Your game is like
that
nobody's empathetic.
we
to
are
I'm so glad
children
that they're-
starving.
We are
When
talking
it's
about
not what that's
USAID.
really about.
Let him respond.
USAID.
Why?
USAID is a percentage point, like literally less than 1% of the U.S. budget. But because there is this attitude amongst the, well, frankly, it's not just USAID. I don't like them cutting the IRS.
Oh.
I don't like them cutting the
Here's
EPA.
where another of mine.
I don't like them cutting Labor Department. I
I
don't
do.
like them cutting the National Labor Relations Board. I don't like them cutting the FDA.
Do you like the level of this? Do you like
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura,
I had to throw this
afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible,
This is how you
afuera.
do it right here.
Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad,
I love
afuera.
Javier Milei.
Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera. Aunque te resistas. Vamos a seguir por acá. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, algo bien del sector privado. Nada bueno salió del sector público. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Educación. Adoctrinamiento. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Transporte. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Salud. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Desarrollo Social. ¡Afuera!
¡Afuera!
¿Cómo queda el Estado?
the level of debt your country's in?
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you do, but here,
Oh my
we know
God.
the debt shot off like a rocket with the Bush tax cuts and then with the Trump tax cut.
Okay. First of all, the biggest threat to the country right now is the overspending. Yes, absolutely. If he doesn't see that, that's his problem. But he's a fucking moron if he says that, and we all shouldn't be dragged down because Sam Cedar is too stupid to recognize that when you're $37 trillion in debt, maybe it's time to start cutting some things. But he's about to make a point right now that I'm going to rebut in just a second, because this is where I have the biggest problem with what he's saying. This is just complete misdirection, and it's absolutely ridiculous that he would bring this up.
And they want to extend those. And so if we want to deal with the debt, and if that's a genuine concern, we can go back to the time in this country where we had the greatest economic expansion during the 50s and the 60s, when we had a top tax marginal rate of 90% of every dollar that would be earned over $470,000. Today, it would be $3 million. And if these guys are very concerned about the debt and deficit, we have a way of raising that money. We can go back to the greatest economic time of this country. So if that's genuinely their concern, we have that power to do it. I mean,
No.
we're not spending as a function of GDP. We're not spending significantly more per capita than we were
Oh, yes,
in
we
those
are.
years.
Oh, yes, we are.
The problem is that we don't have the revenue. There's been huge tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and presided over by two Republican administrations over the past 20 years.
Okay, Benny, on that point.
Okay. All right. I'm about to smash this son of a bitch. First of all, this idea that we need to go back to spending levels consistent with the 50s and 60s at 90% top marginal tax rate. First of all, are you fucking crazy? Nobody would accept that. You'd drive out every major business out of this country. But more importantly, let me factually tell you what this is, why this is nonsense. And this would not do a thing to help the country financially. First of all, 50s and 60s. Gee, what was going on? We'd just gotten out of World War II. We were like, I don't know, the last remaining superpower on Earth. And what happened? We had this massive industrial boom. Everything was being made in the United States. We had a huge industrial boom to the point that we needed to start importing workers from other countries because we don't have the population to do all the work. Do you think that's going on today? No, not really. Not really. I mean, the prices during this inflationary cycle have gone so out of control, we can't even pay our workers a decent salary. We all know that, but there's not much we can do about it until inflation gets back under control. In order to do that, we have to slow down the fucking spending. It absolutely has everything to do with the spending. And here's the biggest lie. This is the one that Democrats use all the time. The tax the rich. We need to tax people that make all this money. It's all because of that. Blah, blah, blah. Let me let you guys in on something important. This is a good one. You can find this clip. I wasn't able to find it. I tried, but I'll try again before the next episode. But trust me, you can find it. So I think it was Ron Johnson. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a member of the Senate, Republican member of the Senate. Put up another chart. That's why I think it was Ron Johnson, because it was another famous chart. But this time it was about GDP and tax ratio and how much tax receipts were brought in by the federal government based on the tax rate. And what it showed was actually pretty interesting to see. No matter what the tax rate was, consistently since the taxes had been implemented, so this covers his precious time period there of the 50s and 60s when supposedly it was because of the high tax rate that we were making all this money. No. Since we've implemented a tax, the tax receipts, meaning the actual tax money received by the government, has pretty much flatlined and stayed fairly consistent around 16, 17, 18% of GDP. It wasn't the last year. I think it was, it was 2023, I think. That year, the Biden administration, through its ridiculous policies, brought in more revenue via taxes to the federal government than any year on record, at least that had been for, I can't remember how long it was, but it brought in way more than usual for tax money. You know what that led to? Like no difference in inflation, no difference in government spending, no difference in policies. Nothing changed except I guess Congress probably felt they could spend more money. The problem has nothing to do with the tax rate on different tax brackets. And by the way, the tax policies, I couldn't care less about George W. Bush. I'm only talking about Trump here because this is something that he gets slammed for all the time and it's bullshit. The tax rate, the tax policies he passed, guess what? They were tax deductions for everyone. Every tax bracket, every American citizen, every taxpayer, their taxes went down. It wasn't for the rich. It was for everyone. Everyone was making more money. Everyone was paying less taxes. It's insane. It's insane that leftists are so hooked on this idea that they just paid more taxes. No. As I just said, no. You know why it's the same? Because once tax rates go up, there's a point where business owners just can't pay that level of taxes. So they have a couple of choices. They can attempt to sidestep the IRS and keep their money offshore in accounts in different countries, or they can just move their entire business out of the country. And that's exactly what Donald Trump is trying to avoid having happen, is having businesses move their factories and move their employees and move their businesses out of the United States, where the tax revenue would go to the United States government, by keeping the tax rates low enough so that people can stay in business and still fund their money to the federal government, to a government they actually respect enough to pay the federal government the tax money they ask from them. If you raise it to 90%, do you think the American people are going to just... I don't care what bracket of people it's for. And you can shout tax the rich all you want, but there's a big problem with that too. Who owns all the businesses? That'd be the rich. And just because they have it's so insane to think this, but once again, the people that came up with the idea, the people that came up with the concept for the business, the people that invested the capital, the people that took out the loans, the people that started the business with entrepreneurial sort of background and made it wealthy, the amount of people that is out of everybody who tries to start up a business is so small. You don't hear about the failures. You don't hear about the stories where people try to start up a company and it goes under in less than a year, because those stories, obviously, first of all, they're probably embarrassing to the people that tried and they don't really want to talk about it much, but also because it's not very inspiring to hear that if you try, it's going to be pretty unlucky for you. But more than that, like the people that do make it, that should be an inspiration for people to say, maybe I can do something extraordinary. Maybe I can start a business. If I can't start a business, maybe I can get involved in some sort of company that I think has a worthy cause and can contribute to it. But the idea, once again, that this all has to do with taxes, and tax rates just need to go up, and that it's because of Trump and Bush, the tax rates went down under them, that we aren't making as much money. No, it is not. Tax rates have, like I said, it doesn't matter what you set the tax rate at. They've stayed pretty much the same. As far as when you adjust for inflation and you take into account the GDP at the time, it stayed at the exact same rate. And that believe me, that blew me away too. I was surprised to see that. I didn't know what the exact relationship was between tax rates and GDP and collections by the federal government and tax rates and tax receipts that were received by the federal government, and how that actually ended up working out. But it makes total sense when you think about it, because rich people, once again, have the ability to make all sorts of decisions that your average blue-collar employee in the United States doesn't have the ability to make. And once again, when it comes to the IRS, this idea that the IRS is this noble agency going after these tax cheats, yeah, guess what? They're going after the poor people that can't afford expensive lawyers, and they can make sure they get the, hundreds of dollars back that are owed, and do that thousands of times over. You know how I know that? Because everybody knows this. When it's been talked about a million times. People always talk about this. Why they want to hire 70,000 new IRS agents and put them on the case. It wasn't to tax wealthy billionaires for more money. No. It was to make sure that they spied on enough American citizens and their taxes to make sure that they were squeezing the population out of every last dollar they could. And unfortunately for the American people, it does seem to work. I have two friends who I know who were not in the, not in poverty, but they were in a fairly low bracket. They certainly weren't wealthy by no means, but they both got tagged by the IRS for being missing. I think one was $600, and I can't remember how much the other one was, but they both got tagged. I would say, based on my experience and what's been relayed to me by economists and even former IRS agents that has testified in front of Congress, that yes, that is exactly how the IRS works. We don't focus on people with a big business and a lot of money, because we know that that case is going to end up going to court and being fought with expensive lawyers for years and years and years, and we just know that's not worth the effort or the return on the amount of work it's going to take. Sorry, Sam, that's not going to help. You're fucking stupid. So I'm sorry. I had to get that, because this stupid, ridiculous excuse that's always used, and this blame that's always placed on Republicans for wanting to lower taxes. That's one of the biggest benefits of a Republican president and a Republican administration, is that generally Republicans lower the tax rate, and they lower it across the board. Like I said, they don't just lower it. This is a propagandist point by the left that they use constantly. They use it every time they bring up taxes, that they just want to help their wealthy donors out. Who ended up with bigger donations in 2025? Oh, yeah, that's right. Kamala Harris. It was like, what was it? Tens of millions of dollars or something like that. $10 million, I believe, as a matter of fact. And no, it was more than that. I'm sorry, I'm off by a zero. It was 100 million. That's right. Because guess what? That 100 million, you know what happened? It's got a funny story there. She spent 20 million more. She spent more than she was given. $100 million for a campaign. She went 20 million over. And did you see that map that I just put up a little while ago? Yeah, that's how she did after all that money. So, once again, I thought it was Donald Trump that was this evil, rich millionaire and billionaire sympathizer that wanted to get all his buddies all this extra money and make sure that he was, getting all his billionaire friends, all these tax cuts. Sorry, that's not what the evidence seems to bear out. As a matter of fact, it seems to be the opposite. And once again, anybody that accuses Elon Musk or Donald Trump of taking extra money and trying to enrich themselves or whatever, they don't take a paycheck from their jobs. Elon's working for free. Donald Trump is donating his salary as a president. These people don't seem they're focused on making it wealthy. Joe Biden, though, on a senator's salary, who owns like 4 beach homes and God knows how many classic cars, like his precious Corvette he always was talking about, that I would say somebody is trying to use the rules of the government to kind of give themselves a little bit of an extra edge in certain areas, like I don't know, maybe a certain San Francisco Democrat that has notoriously, along with her husband, managed to just so happen to, peg the perfect stock choices in just about every area, to the point that every single expert investor has said, there's no chance in hell this person would be able to make these decisions. Gee, I don't know what happened. Maybe, could it possibly be that she could have been getting some advice from people that have some kind of influence over how the stock market is going to be changing? Nah. It's all those rich billionaires. Yeah, that's it, for sure. What a joke.
Years, I love it. This is my favorite argument I've ever heard on your show. I love it. Go to the American people. Sam, I beg of you, join the DNC, run for DNC chair. I'll do anything, okay? I want your ideas.
Yeah,
to
David Hogg could be
Democrats
vice president.
bring to the midterms and to the 2028 election. More
he's
IRS
getting pissed.
agents.
Look at him.
Raise
He's
taxes
pissed.
to
And this is another reason I
90%
can't
of
hate.
wages.
I stand that
love
guy.
It, Sam.
No,
He is so smart.
Wages, 90%.
How do I do
every
it?
dollar.
How do I do it? Where can I donate, Sam?
Just send the money to me
It's
directly.
the greatest argument ever. You're right, Sam.
Taxing
You should totally
millionaires
have the
and
entire
billionaires
Democrat Party
actually
make that
does
argument.
quite well in terms of polling. And when
Because they fall for
see
stupid
what
bullshit
wealth
like you're
disparity
telling them.
looks like in this country today.
Wealth disparity,
when they
yeah.
actually see the wealth disparity.
Yeah, we've seen
it's
wealth
quite
disparity.
popular.
It looks like a federal government that's $37 trillion in debt,
Yeah.
spending money on total bullshit.
You don't know what wealth disparity means.
And
Look, he's taking it so seriously
Sam,
now.
Why don't you answer?
You
a quick
can
question?
Google it and find out what it means.
Look at how
Sam,
mad he
why
is.
don't you
Oh,
answer a
he's
quick question?
furious.
Why are the richest counties In all of America, the
I
5
love
major
when this
counties
happens.
in the DMV right around Washington, D.C. Can you explain to me, what do those counties do? Are there some mineral deposits there I don't know about? Did they strike oil?
Are they
Is there some
industrial
type of
America?
rich industry
answer your
that's created
question.
around
I can-
Washington? Maybe you can answer
can-
me that question. Why
I
are
can
those
answer
people
that
so
question.
filthy rich? You don't seem to like rich people, so maybe explain why.
I can answer that question.
What does DC
You want me to
make,
answer it?
Sam?
It's lobbyists. It's lobbyists like all of the ones that have been appointed to Donald Trump's cabinet
yeah.
and to political positions. Rich lobbyists, lobbyists for all sorts of these industries that you supposedly have a problem with. I mean, that's where all the money is being
What
made. It's not being
lobbyists
made
are
by,
working for Donald Trump's
federal
cabinet?
workers. It's being made by lobbyists.
RFK Jr.'s lobby. Oh yeah, no, he's not.
If you will join me
Cash
as part of
oh,
my
yeah, no,
campaign
he's not either.
that you're interested in, and me running the Democratic Party,
stupid.
in calling for Donald Trump to fire all of the lobbyists he's hired so far, it wouldn't leave many people left in the government. But if you'll join me with that, we can start to chip away.
Nobody's
at
going
that
to join
problem
you with
have
anything,
with
Sam.
the counties around DC.
So, I don't know. Maybe you can't feel the same sort of vibes I can. I've heard the guy so many times now, and everything he says is misleading, and it's meant to do exactly what he did there, just to persuade the American people about a bullshit narrative that's the exact opposite of reality. And I find it absolutely despicable and disgusting. And I can't stand the guy because of how absolutely disgusting. I mean, he won't go on. He does not have debates. He doesn't, he tries to, but he tries to go on other people's shows and try to show them up. And he's just like every other leftist that does this shit. He tries to get the soundbite clip. He tries to get the YouTube clip. He tries to get the viral moment that he can put on TikTok of him, owning the Republican. He has no good faith discussion. He has not 1 ounce to engage anyone from the other side in any kind of constructive debate. He loves pointing fingers. He loves scapegoating Donald Trump and Elon Musk. But when it comes down to it, not one thing that he has to say or any policy prescription or recommendation has any validity or historical accuracy behind it. He cherry picks this ridiculous argument. And even with that, he picks something that he has to deliberately leave out very, very important information from in order to have it sound like this great idea, when in actuality, it is honestly has nothing to do with the solution. And like I said, I'm sorry I couldn't find the clip, but I trust me. And if you don't trust me, look it up. Try to find Senator shows. Let me think of a way you could word it. Senator shows chart demonstrating tax rate tax receipts. I can't think of the right way to word it. But I mean, just it should be there somewhere. It wasn't obviously from this Congress. It was from, I think it was from 2020. It was either from 22 or 23. It wasn't the last year of the administration. It was in 22 or 23. But yeah, that was eye-opening, and like I said, I think it was Ron Johnson, but it wasn't Ted Cruz, it wasn't Tom Cotton, it wasn't Mike Lee, it wasn't the only person I think it maybe could have been, is and this is a long shot, maybe Josh Hawley, but I don't think it was him either. I honestly really think it was Ron Johnson. And once again, that would back up the whole chart thing, because he's so infamous now for the chart. Because, of course, his chart about illegal immigration was what actually really saved Donald Trump's life, actually, on stage. Because if he hadn't turned to look at that chart, oh, man, I don't even want to think about it. But that's why the real hero here is Ron Johnson's charts. And I say return the chart back to its rightful place at the head of Congress, or the Senate, actually. Anyway, What have I done? Yeah. Man, I really wanted to. You know what? How long is that clip? Maybe I'll just play this to close the show out, and because I don't think it's very long. And I don't even really need to talk over this. This would just be a great demonstration of what went on last night. I could go over a little bit more in detail tomorrow, but I think this would be important to at least play right now when it just happened last night. So it's about 5 minutes. So let's just go through this real quick because this is really interesting. A lot of people have said this, and from what I can gather and what I've heard, I would say, yeah, this was probably, especially considering the fact that during this whole sitting, this whole joint session, the Democrats were completely and totally disrespectful the entire time. They really didn't show any respect to the president, vice president, the speaker, or to just the American history in general, and the office of the presidency in general. This was totally just a complete showing of disrespect to our entire nation's founding, its history, its traditions, the way that the Congress and the executive are supposed to have the sort of adversarial relation, but at the same time part of the same government representing the same people. And at the same time, the Republicans and Donald Trump himself were so disciplined, and the points that they hit were so powerful that this may have been his best appearance in a speech that anyone's ever seen. And as far as I'm concerned, what I can tell, I would agree this is, and the reasons why are spotlighted in this particular video. So I'll go ahead and close out with this one because it's just, like I said, this is just too important. So this is Megyn Kelly's discussion, and the reason I picked this video is because it touched on the two particular areas where I thought that, man, that was powerful stuff, and that was really, genuinely a noble and incredibly inspiring thing to see from the leader of the country. That's a leader that the American people could get behind and actually believe in. And so anyway, that's why I picked this clip, because there's a lot of people going over this stuff, but Megyn Kelly just happened to highlight both the points I thought were the most powerful, and also it was a shorter clip, and I still cut it down a little bit, but and she also kind of mentioned it in a way that not only displayed their sort of impact as far as to the country, but their impact as far as kind of breaking through the sort of hardened exterior shell that we always have up for political discussions, and showed kind of the vulnerable side of even conservatives and the Republican Party by highlighting two particular incidents that really are they'll tug at your heartstrings. So looking at Donald Trump once again, I saw this during RFK's confirmation. I could tell that Donald Trump was overwhelmed with emotion almost on that occasion. He looked like he was about to tear up, and I almost teared up myself at his speech when he was sworn in, because, man, you could just tell that guy, he has his heart in the right place. And this is probably one of those times that you can look at Donald Trump and say, regardless of what you think about him, he has his heart absolutely in the right place when it comes to this time around. There's not this necessity to always be proving that you're a tough guy. We all know that. We all know that for sure now. Let's show the American people something a little bit different. And this is probably exactly what a lot of people needed to see that something a little bit different. So I'll let Megyn Kelly take it away on this one, and then we'll go ahead and probably not discuss much, but I'm gonna try and play through all of this all in one shot, and then we'll wrap up from there. So, oh, damn it, I did this again. Sorry.
I don't remember actually really feeling so moved repeatedly, by some wow. And I mentioned Canadian Debbie. I'm softer than she is. She is tough. She's Holly Hunter in broadcast news. If she's shedding a tear, you've done something right. And we were both in tears a couple of times last night. I really felt like they did a very, very good job in the art of the speech, taking us on a bit of an emotional journey. Trump with the laughs, but also those sentimental moments, which were crafted by his team, obviously, were really good. And the speech writing around their stories, really good. Let's just start with, since we're on the subject of little DJ, let's watch that moment.
In 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. That was more than 6 years ago. Since that time, DJ and his dad have been on a quest to make his dream come true, and DJ has been sworn in as an honorary law enforcement officer, actually a number of times. The police love him, the police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
He looks so happy.
His dad's there.
His dad
He's
looks
proud as
so
hell. And watch this. This is amazing. Not just this, but this is amazing too.
The head of the Secret Service giving him a badge.
But what? There we go.
Oh, and he hugs him. Head of the Secret Service hugging DJ. Full arms around the neck. They're chanting DJ.
Thank you, DJ.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
And I'll just finish it off, Rich, by showing you the Democrat reaction.
This is
Here's the video.
insane.
You can see the Republicans in the front clapping, and you can see the Democrats sitting. See them in the back? They're all sitting. They couldn't get to their feet for that moment. They've lost their way. There's something deeply wrong with somebody who cannot stand for that.
This was behind
and
the
this was
title
it.
for
It
the
had to
episode
do
today,
with
by the way.
Jocelyn Nungare. This was a little girl who was
This is
12
the
years
other
old who went out to the 7-Eleven and got attacked by two illegals from Venezuela. And they sexually assaulted her, tortured her, and threw her off a bridge. And her mother was there. This is one of the reasons I personally voted for Donald Trump and ran to the voting booth to do it. I was literally thinking of Jocelyn Nungare.
By the way, her mother has
I didn't go to the
stated
voting
that
booth. I figured it out. I filled it out by
Biden
mail. But
administration
my
never
point is
reached
simply,
out to her at all.
that's who was on my
Trump
mind.
has
This girl's
reached out
story
to
was so
her time and
harrowing,
time
and her
again
poor
since
mother,
her death.
so distraught. And there was no reason for it. There was no reason for it. Joe Biden opened the southern border and killers came across. And the Democrats know it's true. It was done intentionally. And her mother was there last night, and President Trump announced an extraordinary thing to remember Jocelyn in SOT 12. Here it is.
Alexis, I promised that we would always remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter, and earlier tonight, I signed an order keeping my word to you. One thing I have learned about Jocelyn is that she loved animals so much. She loved nature. Across Galveston Bay, from where Jocelyn lived in Houston, you will find a magnificent national wildlife refuge, a pristine, peaceful, 34,000-acre sanctuary for all of God's creatures on the edge of the Gulf of America. Alexis, moments ago, I formally renamed that refuge in loving memory of your beautiful daughter, Jocelyn. So, Mr. Vice President, if you would, may I have the order?
She's trying not to cry, but incredible. Mike Lee Mike Johnson looks like he's actually on the verge of tears, too.
You can see she's trying not to cry, Rich. And he, you know, to your point about the showmanship, right? There's showmanship going on there, but there's true emotion too. I mean, there's something wrong with you again if you don't feel it. And yet, again, here is the Democrat reaction to that moment. Like, how do they not stand? How is not everyone on the left side of the chamber standing and clapping for that?
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
Yeah, that's crazy, but this is I'll just end with this. A lot of people got this wrong, and there was one moment where there was some applause from the Democrat side. I only saw one person. Kind of crazy. It was Elizabeth Warren. But there was one time during the entire address that there was any applause. Guess what it was? Ukraine funding. More Ukraine funding. That was the one time anyone on the Democrat side, as far as I could tell, just one person, applauded. Not for those two people in grieving or in a battle for a young child's life, for Ukraine funding. So the Democrats are a lost cause. They're whatever the party stood for, this group of people, they're despicable, and they don't stand for anything but their own wealth and their own power. So like I said, that'll do it for today. I will be back tomorrow, and we'll be going over some other stuff, hopefully. But there's a lot of stuff I've missed that I've wanted to go over. I think I mentioned this. It's getting bigger. I've got a catalog of stuff I could go over, so it's not like I'll be out of content. But I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Thank you for sticking with me this long on this one. So have a great night. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you then. Until then, I'll catch up with you later. So, sorry. Anyway, have a good one. Peace out.
I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is? I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah.
All right. Go.